Los Angeles had always been a city of fire. Wildfires in the hills, sunset bleeding orange across the Pacific, heat rising off asphalt in waves that made distance shimmer like lies. But the fire that rolled through the underground racing scene on a Tuesday night in late summer was something else entirely. Something older, something that didn't care about geography or weather patterns or the laws of thermodynamics. It cared about guilt. The race started clean as illegal street racing ever got. Midnight meetup in an industrial district where the cops had been paid to look elsewhere, where shipping containers created walls that funneled sound away from residential areas where the only witnesses were people who understood that what happened at the quarter mile stayed at the quarter mile. 40 cars, with $60,000 in combined bets, and one rule that everyone knew, but nobody said out loud: you raced what you brought and you lived with what you lost. Marcus Apex Chen sat in his modified Nissan GTR, feeling the engine's throaty growl vibrate through his custom racing seat. He'd put 80 grand into this car, money that hadn't come from his day job managing a body shop in Koreatown, money that came from the kind of work you didn't discuss with the IRS or your family or anyone who still believed the world operated on principles instead of profit. Apex, his passenger said, a kid named Tommy who served as spotter, barely 19, all nervous energy and misplaced loyalty. You sure about this race? That black Charger, the one that just rolled up, nobody knows who's driving it. Marcus glanced in his rearview mirror, but the car was hard to miss. A 1969 Dodge Charger, black as a hole in the world, sitting at the back of the gathered vehicles like a predator watching prey. No sponsor stickers, no custom paint job, no driver visible through the tinted windows. Just presence, weight, the kind of attention that made your hindbrain remember when humans weren't the apex predators. Ghost car, Marcus muttered. Probably some trust fund kid trying to look mysterious. All show, no go. I don't know, man, Tommy insisted. Something feels wrong, like bad wrong. Maybe we should win 60 grand and pay off the people who'll break our legs if we don't, Marcus interrupted. Focus, Tommy. Call the turns like I taught you. The race organizer, a woman everyone called Cypher because her real name was currency she didn't trade, walked to the starting line with a flashlight that had been modified to shine bright enough to trigger retinal burn if you looked directly at it. Standard equipment for someone who needed to be seen and feared in equal measure. Gentlemen, Cypher announced, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd, and ladies. She nodded at the 3 female drivers, including one in a purple Supra who looked capable of murder if you scratched her paint. We race clean. We race fast. We race for keeps. Course is 7 miles through the warehouse district. First car across the finish gets the pot. Second place gets stories. Third and lower get nothing but the drive home. Now understand? 40 engines revved in response. Marcus felt his GTR's twin-turbo setup hum with potential energy waiting to become kinetic violence. Beside him, 15 other cars idled at the starting line. Behind, 24 more prepared for the second heat. The black Charger didn't move, just sat there, watching. On my mark, Cypher raised the flashlight. 3, 2, the Charger's engine started. Not a normal start. Not the controlled ignition of gasoline and spark plugs. This was something fundamental and wrong. A sound like 1,000 voices screaming in harmony. Like metal remembering it used to be alive. Like physics deciding it was tired of being consistent. Every driver on the starting line felt it. That primal recognition that something in the food chain had just shifted. Go! Cypher dropped the light. 40 cars launched. Tires screamed, turbos spooled, and Marcus's GTR hit 60 miles per hour in 2.7 seconds, exactly as the spec sheet promised. The Black Charger hit 60 in 1.3 seconds. Physics be damned. What the? Tommy grabbed the dashboard as Marcus's car, built for speed, was passed like it was standing still. The Charger moved with momentum that cars shouldn't have. No wheel spin, no traction loss, just absolute conversion of intent into acceleration. And it was on fire, not metaphorically, actually burning. Orange-blue flames rolled off the hood, the roof, the wheels that should have melted, but somehow maintained integrity despite violating every material science principle. The exhaust didn't emit smoke. It belched hellfire that ignited the asphalt behind it, leaving a trail of burning road that the following cars had to swerve to avoid. "That's not possible," Tommy shouted over the engine noise. "Marcus, that car is literally on fire. How is it not?" "I don't care if it's driven by the devil himself," Marcus snarled, shifting into fourth gear and pushing the GTR past 140 miles per hour. "We're getting that money." The race tore through Los Angeles's industrial heart, past darkened warehouses, under freeway overpasses, through intersections where the few civilians present dove for cover as 40 racing engines turned city streets into temporary racetracks. The purple Supra was in second place, its driver executing perfect drift turns that painted rubber streaks across concrete. A heavily modified Corvette held third, its American muscle refusing to yield to Japanese engineering. And the Black Charger led them all, impossible and unstoppable. Its flames growing brighter as it accelerated, Marcus pushed harder. His GTR's speedometer climbed past 160, past 170, approaching the theoretical maximum that his modifications should allow. The warehouse walls blurred into streaks of graffiti and rust. Tommy had stopped calling turns and started praying, quiet, desperate words that Marcus pretended not to hear. 2 miles in, the Charger slowed, not mechanically, not gradually. It just stopped accelerating, maintaining speed but no longer pulling away, as if it was waiting, hunting. Marcus saw his chance. He dropped into fifth gear, pushed the turbo to maximum boost, and pulled alongside the flaming car. Through the orange-blue fire wreathing the Charger's exterior, Marcus could see inside the cabin, and immediately wished he hadn't. The driver's skull was burning. Not wearing a skull helmet, not painted to look skeletal, actually on fire, actual bone visible through flames that consumed flesh without destroying structure. The eyes were empty sockets filled with hellfire that tracked Marcus's GTR, with attention that felt personal, felt hunting. The skeletal driver turned toward Marcus's car and grinned. "Marcus, get away from it!" Tommy screamed. "That's not human, that's not..." The Charger swerved, not aggressively, almost gently, but it made contact with the GTR's quarter panel, just a touch, metal on metal, physics dictating that two objects couldn't occupy the same space. Except the Charger's touch ignited Marcus's car, not the exterior, not the engine. The car was fine. But inside the cabin, flames erupted from nowhere, from everywhere, from the conceptual space where guilt lived. They wrapped around Marcus like conscious things, like they were reading him, measuring him, finding him wanting. "No!" Marcus screamed, his hands jerking the wheel instinctively. The GTR veered right, jumped the curb, and crashed into a chain-link fence, with the kind of impact that totaled vehicles and hospitalized drivers. But Marcus didn't feel the crash, didn't feel the airbag deploy, didn't feel anything except the flames that weren't burning his body, but were absolutely burning something deeper. The black Charger stopped, reversed, pulled up alongside the wrecked GTR with predatory patience. The driver's door opened, and what emerged wasn't human, not anymore, not in any way that mattered. Robbie Reyes had been human once, 22 years old, East LA born and raised, working as a mechanic to support his disabled brother. He'd died being a good person, murdered by gang members who wanted to steal the car he'd been test driving, should have stayed dead. But the spirit of vengeance had other plans. Now he was Ghost Rider, cursed, burning, bound to a 1969 Dodge Charger that served as both transportation and prison, condemned to hunt the guilty, to punish the wicked, to serve as hell's collection agent for souls that owed debts measured in suffering. And Marcus Apex Chen's debt was considerable. Ghost Rider walked toward the wrecked GTR, his footsteps leaving burning prints on concrete that would smolder for hours. The gathered crowd, racers who'd stopped to witness the crash, the civilians who'd emerged from warehouses to see what the noise was about, all backed away from the burning figure with primal recognition that this was not a problem that could be solved with guns or bravery or anything human. Marcus Chen, Ghost Rider's voice was wrong. Too many voices layered over each other, human and inhuman, alive and dead, speaking in harmony that hurt to hear. You have sinned. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus managed, his face bleeding from where the airbag had deployed, his hands shaking as he tried to unbuckle his seatbelt. This is crazy. You're crazy. Tommy, call. Ghost Rider grabbed the GTR's door and tore it off. Not opened, tore. The reinforced steel screamed as it separated from the frame like cardboard. 7 months ago, Ghost Rider continued, you're dragging Marcus from the wreckage with grip that was gentle only by comparison to the alternative. You transported 34 people across the Mexican border. You told them you were helping them find work. You told them America would be safe. That's not, you sold them to Alejandro Voss. Ghost Rider's flaming skull leaned closer. You knew what he would do to them. You knew 12 were children. You knew, and you took the money anyway. The crowd went silent. Even the still racing cars in the distance seemed to quiet, as if the entire city was listening to judgment being pronounced. I didn't know. Marcus tried to lie, but the flames wrapped tighter. Okay, I knew. I needed the money. My family, Your family, Ghost Rider interrupted, will mourn you, as the families of those 34 people mourn them. Feel their pain, experience their suffering, know what you've done. Ghost Rider's eyes met Marcus's, the penance stare. It wasn't fire, it wasn't physical, it was something worse, absolute empathy forcibly imposed. Marcus felt every moment of terror his victims had experienced. The children crying for parents who couldn't help them, the adults realizing they'd been betrayed, the hours in locked containers without water, the violations that came after Voss took possession, every scream, every prayer, every moment of suffering that Marcus had enabled, his mind shattered trying to contain it all. When Ghost Rider released him, Marcus collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, still breathing, still alive. But the person who'd been Marcus Apex Chen was gone. They're replaced by a hollow thing that would spend the rest of its existence experiencing an infinite loop of its victims' suffering. The guilty are punished, Ghost Rider pronounced. He turned toward his charger, prepared to leave, prepared to hunt the next sinner on his eternal list, and found himself surrounded by cars, not racing anymore, not fleeing, surrounding him in a loose perimeter, 10 vehicles with engines still running, drivers visible through windshields, all of them wearing expressions that said, this situation had just gone from illegal racing to something much more complicated. The purple Supra's driver emerged first. Female, mid-30s, wearing a tank top that showed arms decorated with tattoos of gears and pistons, and scripture in languages Ghost Rider's human half didn't recognize, but the spirit understood perfectly. Prayers for protection, wards against evil, symbols that meant family. "That's far enough, Matchstick," she said, her voice carrying the kind of calm that came from facing down worse than flaming skulls. "You just killed a man at an illegal street race. That's going to attract attention we don't need. So here's how this goes. You leave now, quietly, and we all forget this happened. Or you stay, and we find out if fire burns faster than a quarter-mile's worth of nitrous and bad decisions." Ghost Rider's flames flickered. The spirit of vengeance processed this, a criminal defending other criminals, threatening hell's own enforcer, showing courage that bordered on suicidal. Letty Ortiz, Ghost Rider identified her, the spirit pulling information from cosmic awareness that knew every sin, every soul. Dominican, former FBI fugitive, vehicular assault, grand theft auto, accessory to— "Yeah, I know my rap sheet," Letty interrupted. "Point is, you just crashed my race, scared off my competitors, and traumatized that kid." She pointed at Tommy, who was cradling Marcus's catatonic form while crying, who's probably got nothing worse on his conscience than running a few red lights. "So, unless you're planning to barbecue everyone here, I suggest you get back in your hell mobile and find someone else to judge." The other drivers revved their engines, not acceleration but warning, a show of solidarity that said they might be criminals, but they were criminals together. The Ghost Rider assessed the situation, counted sins, weighed guilt, found complexity. Letty Ortiz had committed crimes, but her record also showed protection of innocence during her criminal operations, refusal to harm civilians, a code that elevated her above common law breaking. The spirit of vengeance was designed to punish absolute evil, not moral ambiguity. "You have sinned," Ghost Rider said finally, "but your sins are not today's judgment. Leave now, before I change my assessment." Letty held his gaze for 3 full seconds, longer than most humans managed when staring into hellfire. Then she nodded once, got back in her Supra, and drove away. The other 9 cars followed, engines fading into Los Angeles's ambient noise. Ghost Rider returned to his charger. Flames died down to embers. The skull receded. He replaced by Robbie Reyes's human face, young, tired, carrying the weight of damnation in eyes that had seen too much. "That wasn't smart," he muttered to himself, knowing the spirit was listening. "Those people were criminals. We punish the guilty." The spirit's voice resonated in his mind, not the complicated. "Since when do you care about complications?" "Since we met people who steal and kill but protect children in the same breath. They confuse the mission." Robbie started the charger, normal ignition this time, no hellfire, just American muscle and gasoline. "Welcome to Earth. Everything's complicated. You'll get used to it. Or we'll burn it all and simplify." "That's what I'm afraid of," Robbie whispered. He drove away from the crime scene, leaving Marcus Chen's broken mind and Tommy's trauma behind. Somewhere in the city, Alejandro Voss continued operating his trafficking network. Somewhere more sinners accumulated debts that would eventually come due, and somewhere a woman named Letty Ortiz was making a phone call to a man named Dom Toretto, telling him about the flaming car that had just crashed their race and judged their souls. The call would change everything, because Dom Toretto didn't run from problems. He drove straight through them at 140 miles per hour, and Ghost Rider was about to learn that the Fast and Furious family had their own code, their own vengeance, their own fire. If you want to see more legendary characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop a character suggestion in the comments below. We're just getting started. And this ride's about to get a whole lot faster and a whole lot hotter. The streets of Los Angeles had just become a battleground between two forces that refused to yield. Supernatural vengeance that answered to hell, and chosen family that answered to no one. Quarter mile at a time was about to meet eternity, one soul at a time, and neither side knew how to back down. Dom Toretto's garage in Echo Park smelled like motor oil, coffee, and the kind of history that couldn't be washed off with degreaser. The building had been in his family for 30 years, first his father's, then his, now serving as headquarters for a crew that had evolved from street racers to international operators without ever forgetting where they started. "Run it again," Dom said, his arms crossed, his massive frame leaning against a tool cart, while Letty paced in front of the partially disassembled engine of her Supra. "Everything. Don't skip details because they sound crazy." Letty stopped pacing, her eyes carrying the kind of intensity that came from seeing something that didn't fit into any framework reality provided. "Dom, I watched a car, a '69 Charger, get passed by doing 160 while on fire. Not paint that looked like fire. Not some pyrotechnic stunt. Actual flames rolling off the hood, the wheels, everything. And when it touched Apex's GTR, the fire spread, like it was alive, like it wanted him." "Cars don't want things," Tej Parker interjected from his position at a computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard, while multiple monitors displayed traffic camera footage, police reports, and social media posts. "Cars are machines. Physics, engineering. They don't have desire." "This one did," Letty insisted, "and when the driver got out..." She paused, choosing words carefully, because even saying it out loud sounded insane. His head was a skull, burning, actual bone wrapped in flames, and when he looked at Apex, when their eyes met, Apex just broke, started screaming about children and containers and debts he owed. Went catatonic on the spot. Roman Pierce sitting on a workbench and eating cereal directly from the box despite it being 2 a.m., stopped mid-chew. "Hold up, you're telling me a flaming skeleton rode up to an illegal street race and mind-melted someone with eye contact? That's what we're going with? Because I've got some follow-up questions, starting with what the hell and ending with what the hell." "I know how it sounds," Letty replied. "Do you?" Roman demanded. "Because it sounds like someone spiked your nitrous with bath salts and you hallucinated a Marvel character. No offense, but flaming skeletons. That's not real life. That's comic book nonsense." "I was there too," another voice added. Cypher, not the race organizer, but Ramsey, the tech genius who'd earned the nickname for her ability to navigate digital security like it was child's play, looked up from her tablet where she'd been analyzing the same traffic footage as Tej. "I saw it from 3 blocks away. The fire trail it left burned for 20 minutes after it drove past. I sampled the residue." She held up a sealed evidence bag containing blackened concrete. This isn't gasoline, isn't thermite, isn't any accelerant in any database. The chemical composition is wrong, like it's burning on principles chemistry doesn't recognize. So what are we saying? Brian O'Connor spoke up from the garage bay door, where he'd been doing pull-ups on the frame, his former FBI training making him approach this like an investigation rather than a ghost story. Supernatural entity, demon, some kind of meta-human situation? I'm saying something is hunting people in Los Angeles, Dom said quietly, his voice carrying the weight that made people listen. And whatever it is, it's using our world, street racing, the quarter mile, our territory, as hunting ground. That makes it our problem. Our problem? Roman protested. Dom, brother, I love you like family, but our problem usually means high-speed chases, heists, maybe the occasional governmental conspiracy. It does not traditionally include flaming skeletons who melt people's brains with eye lasers. It wasn't lasers, Letty corrected. It was judgment, like the thing looked into Apex and made him see something, feel something, broke him from the inside. Tej pulled up new footage on his monitors, cell phone video from someone in the crowd at the race. Is shaky and poorly lit, but clear enough to show the black Charger approaching the crashed GTR, show the driver emerging wreathed in flames, show Marcus Chen's screaming face during whatever the flaming figure did to him. Okay, Tej admitted, his usual confidence shaken. That's not CGI. I've analyzed the footage frame by frame. No digital artifacts, no editing signatures. Either this is the best practical effect I've ever seen, or we're dealing with something that violates every physical law I understand. Or both, Ramsey suggested. Advanced technology that looks like magic. Arthur C. Clarke's third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That wasn't technology, Letty said flatly. Nah, technology doesn't look at you like it knows every bad thing you've ever done and is deciding if you deserve to burn for it. Dom pushed off from the tool cart and moved to the monitors, studying the frozen image of Ghost Rider standing over Marcus Chen. The flames, the skull, the posture that radiated judgment and inevitability. What did Apex do? Dom asked. You said the thing mentioned children, containers. What was it talking about? Letty's expression darkened. I don't know the details, but after the thing left, Tommy, Apex's spotter, was crying, saying something about trafficking, that Apex had been running people across the border, selling them to someone named Voss. The garage went silent, that particular silence that came when criminals with codes learned about criminals without them. Alejandro Voss, Brian said quietly, his FBI knowledge kicking in. Runs one of the largest human trafficking operations in the Western Hemisphere, moves people, mostly women and children, from Central America through Mexico into the U.S., sells them to whoever pays. Labor, exploitation, worse. He's been on international wanted lists for 8 years. No one can touch him because he's got protection at levels that make prosecution impossible. So this flaming thing, this Ghost Rider, Dom worked through the implications. It's hunting traffickers, going after people involved in Voss's network. Looks like, Letty confirmed. And Apex was part of it, Dom continued. Which means other racers in our scene might be too. Which means this thing is going to keep showing up at our races, keep hunting people in our world, until it finds everyone connected to Voss. Or until it decides we're all guilty by association, Roman pointed out. Dom, you heard Letty. This thing looked at her, at all of them, like it was measuring their souls or some mystical nonsense. What happens when it measures US? We've got rap sheets longer than CVS receipts. Grand theft, auto, assault. That thing in Rio that we definitely don't talk about. If this Ghost Rider decides we're on its list, then we deal with it, Dom said simply. But right now, we've got more immediate problems. If Voss is operating in LA, if he's using street racing to move people, then he's in our house. Using our culture, that's disrespectful. That's a problem we solve regardless of flaming skeletons. So what's the play? Brian asked. Dom turned from the monitors, and everyone in the garage recognized the expression, the look that said plans were forming, decisions were being made, and arguing was a waste of breath. We find out everything about Voss's operation, who he works with, how he moves people, what races he's using as cover, and we shut him down. And the Ghost Rider? Tej asked. We find out what it wants, Dom replied. If it's hunting Voss's people, maybe it's on our side, enemy of our enemy situation. Or it's a psychotic supernatural entity that will judge us all guilty and melt our brains, Roman countered. That's also a possibility we should consider. Then we make sure it knows we're not the enemy, Dom said. We've talked our way out of worse situations. Name one, Roman challenged. Brazil, the Vault Chase. We convinced the cops we were on their side while actively robbing them. That's not the same as convincing a flaming skeleton we're on its side. The principle's the same, Dom replied, with the kind of logic that only worked because he believed it absolutely. We show it we're going after the same target, prove we're not what it thinks we are, and if that doesn't work... He moved to a workbench and pulled back a tarp, revealing a heavily modified Dodge Charger, matte black with reinforced plating and an engine that looked like it could power a small city. We outrun it. Letty moved to Dom's side, running her hand along the Charger's hood. You think we can outrun fire that doesn't follow physics? I think we can try, Dom said, and if we can't outrun it, we outdrive it. Make it respect what we can do before it judges what we've done. That's insane, Tej observed. That's Tuesday, Dom corrected. Ramsey, I need everything on Voss. Operations, locations, personnel. Brian, reach out to your FBI contacts off the record. Find out what they know about this Ghost Rider, if anything. Letty, talk to the street scene. Find out who else has seen this thing, where it shows up, what triggers it. And me? Roman asked. You stay here and make sure nobody burns down my garage while we're gone, Dom said. That's not a real job. It is when there's a supernatural fire demon hunting people in our neighborhood, Dom replied. Someone needs to be here in case it shows up looking for us. Roman opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. You know what? Fine, I'll guard the garage against the fire demon. This is my life now. This is what we're doing. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Brian pulled Dom aside, his voice low. You really think we can convince a supernatural entity that we're not worth judging? Dom, our hands aren't clean. We've done things, hurt people, even if we tried to minimize casualties. What if this thing looks at us and decides we're guilty? Dom met Brian's eyes. Then we better make sure the good we've done outweighs the bad, because I'm not dying to some flaming judge without at least making my case, and neither are you. We're family, Brian. That's got to count for something, even to hell. Brian nodded slowly, accepting the logic that wasn't really logic but was belief strong enough to substitute. All right, I'll make the calls, but Dom, if this goes wrong, if this thing comes for us, it won't, Dom said with certainty he didn't entirely feel. Because we're going to find it first, and we're going to show it that not everyone who breaks the law is worth burning for. 3 blocks away, Robbie Reyes sat in his Charger in an abandoned lot, staring at his hands. Normal hands now, no flames, no bone, just 22-year-old skin and calluses from mechanic work. "They're going to come after us," he said to the spirit inside him. "That woman, Letty, she didn't run, didn't break. That means she's strong, and strong people don't leave threats unaddressed." "Good," the spirit replied. "Let them come. We will measure them, judge them, burn them if they are found wanting." "And if they're not?" Robbie asked. "If they're criminals who protect people, sinners trying to be better, what then? There is no such thing as redemption, only debts paid or unpaid." "That's not true," Robbie insisted. "People change. People choose to be better. I've seen it." "You are young. You still believe in hope. Hope is a lie. Mortals tell themselves to make damnation feel temporary." "Then why did you let them go?" Robbie challenged. "Back at the race. You could have judged all of them. Instead, you let them drive away." The spirit was silent for a moment. Then, "Their debts are not yet due. When they are, we will collect." "Unless they pay those debts differently," Robbie said. "Unless they prove they're worth more alive than burned." "Impossible." "We'll see," Robbie replied, starting the engine. "Because if I know anything about people who love cars and family, it's that they don't quit." And Letty Ortiz looked like someone who doesn't quit anything. He drove into the Los Angeles night, heading toward another name on his list. Another sinner in Voss's network, another debt to collect. And somewhere behind him, in a garage that smelled like family and motor oil, Dom Toretto was planning how to catch a demon. The collision was inevitable. The outcome was not. The body was found in a Long Beach warehouse 3 days after the street race incident. LAPD initially classified it as gang violence. Burned beyond recognition, no witnesses. Neighborhood with a history of territorial disputes. Case would probably sit in a file cabinet until someone needed to close cold cases for department statistics. But Brian O'Connor had spent enough years in the FBI to recognize patterns that street cops missed. And this particular pattern was setting off every investigative instinct he'd developed. "Third one this week," Brian said, standing outside the police cordon with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He wasn't officially here, hadn't been FBI in years, but some of his former colleagues still took his calls, still trusted his judgment enough to let him observe crime scenes from a respectful distance, where Agent Monica Fuentes stood beside him, her DEA credentials getting her actual access, while Brian made do with standing at the perimeter. "Third confirmed," she corrected. "There are 4 more suspicious deaths in the past month, with similar characteristics. Victims burned, but not by accelerants we can identify. Witnesses reporting a black muscle car at the scene, and every victim has connections to Alejandro Voss's trafficking network." "So someone's hunting traffickers," Brian observed. "Normally I'd applaud the vigilante justice, but the methods are..." He gestured at the warehouse where forensic techs were still documenting the scene. "Extreme," Monica finished. "Brian, I've seen cartel executions, seen what gangs do to send messages. This is different. The burns aren't just lethal, they're targeted. Like whatever killed these people knew exactly how much pain to inflict before finishing them." "Punishment," Brian said quietly. "Not just execution. Someone's making them suffer for what they did." "Or something?" Monica pulled up photos on her tablet. crime scene documentation that wasn't officially supposed to leave the evidence chain, but often did when professionals shared information. Look at the burn patterns. They're not consistent with any fire we understand. No accelerant residue, no ignition source. The victims just burned. From the inside out, according to the coroner, like they were being cooked from their souls outward. Brian thought about Letty's description, the flaming skull, the judgment, the way Marcus Chen had broken when the Ghost Rider looked at him. What if it's not a person? What if it's actually something supernatural? Monica gave him a look that suggested she was reconsidering sharing information with him. Brian, you know I respect you. You were good FBI, but supernatural. Come on, there's always a rational explanation. Then explain the fire that burns without fuel, Brian challenged. Explain the witnesses who say the killer's head is a flaming skull. Explain how these victims all died exactly the same way despite different locations, different circumstances, different everything except the connection to Voss. Monica was quiet for a moment, studying the crime scene photos with professional detachment that Brian could see cracking slightly. If I accept your premise, and I'm not saying I do, what would we even do about it? You can't arrest a supernatural entity, can't read it its rights. You can't put it in a cell. No, Brian agreed, but you can maybe redirect it, point it at the people who deserve burning and away from people who don't. And you think Dom's crew can do that? Brian, your family... She caught herself. Your former associates are criminals, car thieves at minimum, probably worse. If this thing is hunting people connected to crime, they're on the target list. Maybe, Brian acknowledged, but there's a difference between stealing cars and trafficking humans, between breaking laws and breaking people. And if this Ghost Rider is intelligent, if it can be reasoned with, maybe it recognizes that difference too. That's a lot of maybes stacked on top of accepting that demons are real, Monica pointed out. You got a better theory? Brian asked. She didn't, and her silence was admission enough. Brian's phone buzzed. Text from Tej. Found something. Garage. Now. I've got to go, Brian told Monica. If any more bodies show up, I'll let you know, Monica promised. But Brian, be careful. Whatever this is, it's killed 9 people in a month. All of them bad people, yes, but dead is dead. And if your crew gets in its way... We've handled worse, Brian said, knowing it was probably a lie but needing to believe it anyway. He drove back to the garage in his Nissan Skyline, the car that had carried him through more impossible situations than any vehicle had a right to survive. The familiar weight of the steering wheel, the precise response of the throttle, it centered him in a way that few things could. Cars made sense. Cars followed rules, even when you pushed them past design specifications. Now, they still operated on principles of physics and engineering. Unlike flaming skeletons that burned people from the soul outward. The garage was full when Brian arrived. Not just the core crew, but extended family. Mia Toretto was there despite having stepped back from active operations since becoming a mother. Han Sol-Oh had flown in from Tokyo after Tej sent him some of Ramsey's findings. Even Leo and Santos, the comic relief duo who somehow always survived situations that should have killed them, were present and looking uncommonly serious. We've got a problem, Tej announced without preamble, pulling up footage on the garage's main display screen. Actually, we've got several problems, but this is the big one. The screen showed surveillance footage from multiple sources, traffic cameras, security systems, these cell phone videos, all stitched together into a timeline that tracked the Black Charger's movements across Los Angeles over the past month. "I've been mapping every confirmed sighting of our flaming friend," Tej explained. "And I found a pattern. It's not random. It's not even opportunistic. This thing is working through a list." "A hit list," Ramsey added, pulling up a second screen that showed a network diagram. Names connected by lines indicating relationships and associations. Every person the Ghost Rider has targeted is connected to Voss's trafficking operation, but not randomly connected. It's working from the bottom up. Street-level transporters first, then mid-level coordinators. Now it's hitting lieutenants. It's climbing the ladder, Brian realized, working its way toward Voss himself. "Exactly," Tej confirmed. "And based on the current pattern, it's going to reach Voss's inner circle in approximately 3 weeks. Maybe less if it accelerates. So we have 3 weeks to either stop it or redirect it," Dom said from his position, leaning against his charger. He'd been quiet up to this point, listening, processing. "What else do we know?" Ramsey typed rapidly, pulling up more data. "I've been digging into the mythology angle, trying to find anything in history or folklore that matches what we're seeing, and I found something. Ghost Rider, actual documented legend going back centuries. Different cultures, different names, but the same core concept. A spirit of vengeance that possesses humans, turns them into supernatural enforcers, and punishes the guilty." "You're saying this is real mythology?" Letty asked. "Like an actual devil deal situation?" "More like cosmic justice system," Ramsey clarified. "According to the legends, Ghost Rider isn't exactly demonic. It's vengeance personified, a force of nature that responds to extreme evil, and whoever it possesses becomes its rider, cursed to hunt and punish the wicked until either the mission is complete or the host dies." "Can it be killed?" Han asked, his usual calm demeanor masking what Brian knew was tactical assessment. "If this thing comes for us, can we stop it?" "Unclear," Ramsey admitted. "The legends suggest it's nearly indestructible. Fire doesn't hurt it because it is fire. Physical damage regenerates. Even destroying the host doesn't necessarily destroy the spirit. It just finds a new rider. So we can't kill it, can't outrun it permanently, and can't reason with it if it decides we're guilty," Roman summarized. "Anyone else feel like this plan is missing several crucial steps, like all the steps?" "We can reason with the host," Brian suggested. "The human part. According to Ramsey's research, the Ghost Rider is a person cursed to host the spirit, which means there's still a human consciousness in there. Someone who might listen. Someone who's been allowing that spirit to burn people alive," Letty pointed out. "Not exactly evidence of a strong moral compass. Or evidence of someone trying to do good with terrible tools," Dom countered. "Think about it. If you had the power to punish evil, actually make people who hurt others suffer for what they did, would you use it?" The garage fell silent. Everyone present had crossed legal lines. Everyone had hurt people, even if they'd tried to minimize casualties. And everyone had seen enough victims of real evil to understand the appeal of absolute judgment. "I'd want to," Mia said quietly, surprising everyone. She rarely spoke up during operational planning anymore. "If I had power to stop people like Voss, people who traffic children, I'd want to use it, even if it meant becoming something scary." "That's the trap," Brian said. "Power like that changes you, makes you judge when you should investigate, makes you punish when you should prosecute. The Ghost Rider might have started with good intentions, but absolute power with no oversight That's how you get monsters who think they're heroes. So what do we do? Dom asked, genuinely seeking input. Wait for it to come to us? Hunt it ourselves? Try to make contact? Before anyone could answer, the garage's lights flickered. Not a power fluctuation, too deliberate, too rhythmic. And underneath the electrical hum, everyone heard it, an engine. Deep, powerful, old-school American muscle that somehow sounded wrong, sounded hungry. Is that? Roman started. The garage door exploded inward. Not opened, not forced. Exploded, torn from its tracks by impact from a vehicle moving at velocity that shouldn't have been possible in the narrow alley outside. Metal screamed and concrete cracked as the black 1969 Charger drove through the opening like it was paper instead of reinforced steel. Ghost Rider had found them. The Charger stopped in the center of the garage, its engine idling with that impossible multivocal sound that made everyone's fight-or-flight instincts scream flight. Flames rolled off the hood, not hot enough to ignite anything nearby, but present, visible, impossible. The driver's door opened. Robbie Reyes emerged in human form. No skull, no flames, just a young Latino man in jeans and a t-shirt with dark hair and darker eyes that carried the weight of damnation. But everyone in the garage could feel it, the spirit inside him, watching, measuring, judging. Dominic Toretto, Robbie said, his voice normal but carrying an echo that suggested the spirit was listening too. Letitia Ortiz, Brian O'Connor, Tej Parker, Roman Pierce, Ramsey, Mia Toretto, Han Sol O. He looked at each person in turn, and everyone felt it. That sense of being weighed, of having every sin cataloged and calculated. You know our names, Dom said, stepping forward with the kind of courage that was either admirable or suicidal. That's polite. Who are you? Robbie Reyes, the young man replied, and the thing inside me doesn't care about introductions. It only cares about debts, and you all owe debts. For what? Letty demanded, moving to Dom's side. We haven't trafficked anyone, haven't sold people. Whatever you think we've done, Grand Theft Auto, Robbie interrupted, his eyes flashing orange for just a moment. Vehicular assault, breaking and entering, robbery, assault with deadly weapons, evading police, destruction of property, and that's just the recorded crimes. The spirit knows about the ones that never made it to court. We've done things, Dom acknowledged, won't deny it, but we've also protected people, saved lives, stopped worse criminals than we've ever been. That's got to count for something. Robbie's expression shifted, conflict visible in the tension around his eyes. The spirit says debts don't get canceled by good deeds, says sin is sin, regardless of intention. And what do you say? Brian asked, addressing Robbie directly instead of the spirit. You're the one riding with it. You're the one in control. Do you agree? For a moment, just a moment, Robbie Reyes looked like the 22-year-old mechanic he'd been before the curse, young, uncertain, carrying weight he hadn't asked for. I say, Robbie replied slowly, that I'm here to give you a chance. One chance. Stay out of my way while I hunt Voss's network, and the spirit won't judge you. Yet. Get involved. Try to stop me. Or protect anyone on my list. His eyes flashed full orange now, and his voice carried the spirit's multivocal echo. And you burn. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Dom met those burning eyes without flinching. And if we're hunting the same people, if we want Voss stopped as badly as you do? Robbie tilted his head, processing this. Why would you care? You're criminals. Voss is just another player in the game. Voss uses our world, Dom replied. Uses street racing to move his victims. That makes it personal. That makes it our problem to solve. You can't solve this, Robbie said flatly. Voss has protection, political, legal, military. People have been trying to bring him down for years. All failed, all died. What makes you think you can succeed? Because we're not trying to arrest him, Letty said. We're trying to dismantle his operation, take apart the network, make it impossible for him to continue. And if that involves you burning the people who deserve burning, we won't stop you. Robbie studied them for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled, grim and tired. You're serious. You actually want to work with the spirit of vengeance. Do you have any idea how insane that sounds? We've done more insane things, Roman muttered. Not many, but some. The spirit doesn't work with criminals, Robbie said. Then maybe it's time the spirit learned to be flexible, Dom replied. Because right now you're burning your way through Voss's network one person at a time. That's effective, sure, but it's slow. And every day you're working the edges is another day Voss is moving people, hurting them, selling them. We can speed that up and get you to the people who really matter, the ones whose debts are worth collecting. Robbie's internal struggle was visible, the human part wanting to believe cooperation was possible, the spirit insisting that all criminals deserved judgment. Finally, one job. You help me reach Voss's lieutenants, the ones who run the actual trafficking routes, and I don't judge you for your past crimes. But, his eyes blazed again, if you protect anyone guilty, if you interfere with vengeance, if you make me regret this, the debt becomes immediate, and I will collect. Deal, Dom said without hesitation, extending his hand. Robbie looked at the offered hand for 3 full seconds. Then he took it. The moment their hands touched, everyone in the garage felt it, a surge of heat, not physical but spiritual, like the air itself was being judged. And for just a moment, Dom saw something, a flash of every sin he'd ever committed, every person he'd hurt, every line he'd crossed. But he also saw every person he'd saved, every sacrifice he'd made, every time he'd chosen family over profit, protection over violence. Robbie released his hand, breathing hard. The spirit. It's confused. It's never encountered anyone like you before. Criminals who protect, sinners who atone. Welcome to the gray area, Dom said. Population, us. This is still a terrible idea, Roman announced to no one in particular. Just want that on record, teaming up with a flaming demon skull to fight traffickers. This is officially the worst Tuesday ever, and we've had some bad Tuesdays. Then it's a good thing tomorrow's Wednesday, Dom replied, turning to his crew. Tej, Ramsey, I need everything on Voss's lieutenants, locations, operations, vulnerabilities. Brian, reach out to Monica Fuentes. Tell her we need intel on trafficking routes. Letty Hahn, start reaching out to the street scene. Find out which races Voss is using as cover. And me? Roman asked with trepidation. You stay here with Robbie, Dom said. Get to know our new associate. Make sure he understands how we operate. Why do I get the suicide mission? Roman demanded. Because you're good with people, Dom replied with a perfectly straight face. I'm good with people. Dom, brother, he burns people for a living. Then don't make him want to burn you, Dom suggested. Shouldn't be hard. You're very likable. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Brian pulled Dom aside. You really think this is going to work? Partnering with something that lives to punish sin. I think we don't have a choice, Dom replied quietly. Voss needs to be stopped, and if the Ghost Rider is already hunting him, we can either work together or get caught in the crossfire. I'd rather have supernatural vengeance on our side than against us. And when the job's done, when Voss is handled, what happens when the spirit decides our debt comes due? Dom looked at Robbie Reyes, who was awkwardly sitting in the garage, while Roman nervously explained the importance of family and loyalty and not burning people who were mostly good despite questionable legal status. Then we prove we're worth more than our sins, Dom said. Same as always, quarter mile at a time. And somewhere in the darkness of Robbie's soul, the spirit of vengeance made calculations it had never needed to make before, because these criminals smelled like family, and family, the spirit was learning, complicated everything. Roman Pierce had faced down drug lords, survived Brazilian prison riots, jumped cars between Abu Dhabi skyscrapers, and once talked his way out of a Cuban military detention center using only charm and increasingly desperate lies. But sitting across from Ghost Rider in Dom's garage, while everyone else handled research, felt like a uniquely terrible form of torture. So, Roman said, breaking the silence that had stretched for 5 uncomfortable minutes, You're actually dead? Like previously deceased? Or is this more of a possessed by an ancient spirit situation, where you're still technically alive, but time-sharing your body with a cosmic entity? Robbie Reyes, currently in human form and looking exhausted in a way that transcended physical tiredness, rubbed his face. Technically, I died. Got brought back when the spirit took me as its host. So I guess I'm both? Dead and alive. Schrodinger's vengeance demon. That's... Roman searched for words. That's deeply unsettling on multiple levels. But okay. Follow-up question. The flaming skull thing. Is that like a voluntary transformation? Or does it just happen when you get angry? Because I'm trying to figure out if I need to worry about making skull jokes. Don't make skull jokes, Robbie advised. Noted. No skull jokes. What about fire jokes? Where do we stand on... Roman, Robbie interrupted. Why are you talking so much? Because when I stop talking, I start thinking about how I'm in a room with someone who can set souls on fire, and thinking about that makes me want to run screaming into traffic, Roman admitted with surprising honesty. So I talk. It's a coping mechanism. My therapist says it's actually very healthy. Well, she said it was exhausting but not actively harmful, which I'm choosing to interpret as healthy. Despite everything, the curse, the weight of judgment, the supernatural burden, Robbie laughed. Actually laughed. You're terrified of me. Extremely, Roman confirmed. Like top 5 scariest things I've encountered, and I once had a tank chase me through Rio. But here's the thing, Dom trusts you enough to make a deal, and I trust Dom enough to not get us all killed by flaming skull demons. So here we are, bonding. This is us, bonding. Is it working? Robbie asked, genuinely curious. Ask me after I know whether you're planning to incinerate my soul, Roman replied. He fears you, the spirit's voice resonated in Robbie's mind. Good. Fear is appropriate. Fear is honest. Fear is also exhausting, Robbie muttered back. To Roman, I'm not going to burn you, your sins. He paused, and Roman watched his eyes unfocus slightly, as if reading something invisible. They're mostly property crimes, theft, evading arrest, some assault, but always in self-defense or defense of others. You're a criminal, but you're not evil. The spirit can tell the difference. The spirit can tell the difference, Roman repeated slowly. Okay, that's actually kind of reassuring. Still terrifying, but in a way that suggests I might survive this conversation. Progress. Robbie stood, moving to examine the cars in the garage, Dom's charger, Letty's modified imports, the various projects in different stages of completion. His hand ran along the hood of a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner with reverence that transcended the supernatural. "I used to work on cars like this," Robbie said quietly. "Before, when I was just a mechanic. Had a shop in East LA, nothing fancy. Mostly rebuilds and restorations for people who couldn't afford dealer maintenance. It was honest work. Good work." "What happened?" Roman asked, his survival instinct telling him this was important, that understanding the human inside the monster was the key to surviving what came next. "My brother," Robbie replied, his voice carrying pain that no amount of hellfire could burn away. "Gabe, he's got a disability, needs constant care, medical bills, special equipment. I was barely keeping us afloat. Then one night some gang members came to the shop, wanted me to soup up their cars, to make them faster for street racing, drug running. I said no." He was quiet for a moment. Roman didn't interrupt. "They didn't like that answer. Came back the next night when I was test driving a client's car, ran me off the road, beat me, shot me, left me for dead in a ditch." Robbie's hands clenched. "I was dying, could feel it, and all I could think about was Gabe. What would happen to him without me? Who would take care of him?" "And that's when the spirit found you," Roman realized. "That's when the spirit made me an offer," Robbie corrected. "Live, protect my brother, get vengeance on evil. All I had to do was become its rider, its weapon, hunt the guilty for eternity or until the curse releases me." He laughed bitterly. "Seemed like a good deal at the time. Now I'm not so sure." "Why not?" Roman asked carefully. "Because the spirit doesn't understand mercy," Robbie said. "Doesn't understand gray areas or second chances or people trying to be better than they were. It only understands debt, sin, punishment. And every day I ride with it, I feel myself becoming more like it. Colder, more willing to judge, less willing to forgive." "Forgiveness is weakness," the spirit interjected, its voice audible to Roman now, a phenomenon that made him flinch. "The guilty must be punished. That is justice. That's vengeance," Robbie shot back. "Not the same thing. Vengeance is honest. Justice is pretense." "See what I deal with?" Robbie said to Roman. "Constant philosophical debates with a cosmic entity that thinks burning people is the solution to all problems." "Sounds exhausting," Roman admitted. "But here's a thought. Maybe working with us helps. Maybe seeing people who've done bad things but are trying to do better, maybe that teaches the spirit something, shows it that redemption is possible." "Redemption is a lie mortals tell themselves," the spirit declared. "Is it though?" Roman challenged, surprising himself with his boldness. "Because I used to be a criminal for profit, stole cars because it paid better than honest work. But then Dom's crew became family and suddenly I was stealing cars to protect people, to stop worse criminals, to save lives. That's not redemption. That's not worth something." The spirit was silent, a pause that felt like cosmic reassessment. "Roman Pierce makes a point," Robbie said with something approaching a smile. "Maybe you're not as good at judging as you think you are. We shall see." The garage door opened, not explosively this time, just normally, and Tej entered with Ramsey, both carrying tablets loaded with data. "Okay," Tej announced. "We've got Voss's network mapped, and it's worse than we thought." He pulled up a holographic display from a portable projector, technology that made Roman wonder when their crew had started operating at intelligence agency levels, showing Los Angeles overlaid with routes, locations, and connected nodes. "Voss has 3 primary lieutenants in LA," Tej explained. Carlos Menendez runs the transport routes. He's the one moving people from safe houses to buyers. Victoria Chen handles the money, laundering payments through legitimate businesses. And Marcus Wheeler provides security, former military, runs the armed response teams that protect shipments and enforce discipline. The Spirit has already killed 4 of Menendez's transporters, Robbie noted, studying the display. I'm working toward him. At your current rate, you'll reach him in 2 weeks, Ramsey calculated, but that gives him 2 weeks to move operations, hide evidence, disappear into whatever hole traffickers crawl into when they feel heat. We need to hit faster. How much faster? Robbie asked. 3 days, Dom said, entering the garage with Brian and Letty. We run simultaneous operations. Hit all 3 lieutenants at once. Dismantle the infrastructure so fast Voss can't adapt. That's ambitious, Robbie observed. That's necessary, Dom corrected. Every day we wait is another day people are suffering. More victims, more lives destroyed. We move fast. We move hard, and we don't give them time to respond. You're talking about a coordinated assault on 3 different targets, with 3 different security profiles, Brian pointed out. That requires planning, resources, and probably more firepower than we typically bring to jobs. Which is why we're partnering with someone who brings literal hellfire, Letty said, looking at Robbie. You can handle the heavy lifting, the security teams, the armed response. We handle infiltration, data extraction, evidence gathering, combination of supernatural muscle and street-level skill. The Spirit likes this plan, Robbie said, his eyes flickering orange. Simultaneous judgment, efficient, appropriate. Okay, so we've got supernatural approval, Roman said. Anyone else feel like we're normalizing the wrong things? No? Just me? Cool. Tej, Ramsey, I need detailed layouts of all 3 locations, Dom ordered. Security systems, guard rotations, escape routes. Brian, coordinate with Monica Fuentes. Make sure law enforcement stays clear of our operations. Last thing we need is cops showing up while Ghost Rider is doing his thing. Her thing, actually, Ramsey corrected. Victoria Chen. She's female. Just so we're clear on pronouns before we potentially contribute to her soul being incinerated. Noted, Dom said. Letty Han, you're with me on the Menendez operation. Roman, Tej, you handle Victoria Chen. Brian, you coordinate overall timing. Make sure all 3 hits happen simultaneously. And where am I going? Robbie asked. You're with me, Dom said. Menendez has the heaviest security. Former cartel enforcers, military-grade weapons. They're expecting trouble. They're not expecting a flaming skull driving through their defenses. You want to use me as shock and awe, Robbie realized. I want to use you as justice, Dom corrected. These are the people moving victims, hurting children. If anyone deserves what you do, it's them. Robbie met Dom's eyes, and for a moment everyone in the garage felt it. 2 forces recognizing each other, one bound by supernatural curse to punish evil, one bound by self-imposed code to protect family. Different methods, same goal. 3 days, Robbie agreed. We prepare, we coordinate, and then we show Voss's network what happens when vengeance partners with family. This alliance is temporary, the Spirit reminded him. When Voss's lieutenants are punished, the crew's debts come due. One problem at a time, Robbie muttered. The next 72 hours were a blur of preparation that looked like organized chaos to outsiders, but was actually precision teamwork refined through years of impossible heists. Tej and Ramsey hacked security systems. creating backdoors and disabling alarms. Brian coordinated with Monica, ensuring law enforcement would be mysteriously absent during the operations. Han acquired vehicles, stolen naturally, that would serve as both transportation and weaponry if things went wrong, and Robbie trained with the crew, teaching them how to work around supernatural abilities without getting caught in the crossfire. The fire doesn't burn randomly, Robbie explained during a practice run in an abandoned warehouse. It targets guilt, specific guilt. So if you're near me when I transform, your past isn't in danger unless you've done something worthy of judgment. But anyone actually guilty, traffickers, killers, the irredeemable, they burn. Define irredeemable, Letty asked, watching Robbie demonstrate by transforming partially, just his hand becoming skeletal and wreathed in flame. People who've hurt innocents without remorse, Robbie said, his voice carrying the spirit's echo. People who've made causing pain into profit. People who knew the suffering they caused and chose to continue anyway. That's irredeemable. That's what burns. And people who've hurt others but regretted it, Letty pressed. People who've tried to atone. Robbie transformed back to human, looking uncertain. Honestly, I don't know. The spirit says no redemption, but I've seen things, moments when someone who should burn doesn't. Like there's something in them, genuine remorse maybe, that the fire recognizes as already punished. So guilt is its own fire, Dom observed, and your fire just makes it visible. Maybe, Robbie said. Or maybe I'm just making excuses because I don't want to be a mindless weapon. Hard to tell sometimes. On the third day, everything was ready. 3 teams, 3 targets, 1 narrow window when all 3 lieutenants would be vulnerable, a moment Tej and Ramsey had engineered through careful manipulation of their schedules and communications. Dom stood in the garage, looking at his assembled family. Brian, still wearing his FBI mindset, despite leaving the agency. Letty, who'd literally returned from the dead to fight beside him. Roman, whose comedy masked courage that few recognized but everyone relied on. Tej and Ramsey, the technical wizards who made impossible plans possible. Han, the calm in every storm. And Mia, who'd insisted on participation despite Dom's protests, arguing that stopping traffickers was worth the risk. And Robbie Reyes, the cursed mechanic, the reluctant demon, the spirit of vengeance wearing a human face. Everyone knows their roles, Dom said. Everyone knows the timing. We go in fast, we hit hard, we get out clean. And we remember why we're doing this. Not for money, not for glory, but for the people Voss's network has hurt. The victims who deserve justice. And vengeance, Robbie added quietly. Sometimes they're the same thing, Dom agreed. They moved out in a convoy that looked like a street racing crew heading to a meet. Casual, unorganized, easy to overlook. But inside each vehicle, weapons were loaded. Plans were memorized, and the impossible was about to become inevitable. Robbie drove his Charger, Dom riding shotgun, an arrangement that still felt surreal to everyone involved. A supernatural entity and a street racer partnering to take down a trafficking operation. Not exactly standard operating procedure for either party. You scared? Robbie asked as they drove through Los Angeles toward the industrial district where Menendez operated. Always, Dom admitted. Fear means you understand the stakes, means you respect the danger. The day I stop being scared is the day I've lost too much of what makes me human. What if you've already lost that? Robbie asked. What if the things you've done, the lines you've crossed, What if they've changed you into something that can't go back? Then you find new lines, Dom replied. New things worth protecting. You let the old version die and build something better from what's left. The spirit says there's no building better, only accepting what you've become. The spirit, Dom said carefully, doesn't understand family, doesn't understand how people can be broken and still be worth saving. You want to prove redemption exists? Show it, starting tonight. They arrived at Menendez's compound, a converted shipping facility surrounded by chain-link fencing, guard towers, and enough armed security to repel a small military assault. Inside, according to Tej's intelligence, were 14 people being held for transport, 14 victims waiting to be sold. Remember the plan, Dom transmitted over the comm to all teams. We're not here to kill, we're here to rescue and dismantle. Deaths are a last resort. Except for the lieutenants, Robbie amended. They burn. Except for the lieutenants, Dom agreed. The assault began with Letty's team cutting power to the compound, a coordinated hack that Ramsey executed from 3 miles away, killing lights and security systems simultaneously. In the darkness, Dom's charger approached the main gate at exactly 47 miles per hour. Transform, Dom said. Robbie closed his eyes. Let go. Surrendered to the curse he'd been fighting for months. The transformation was instant and total. Flesh burned away, revealing a skull wreathed in hellfire. The charger ignited, not destructively, but consciously, becoming a hell chariot that would have made demons jealous. And when Robbie opened his eyes, they burned with vengeance that had waited centuries for this exact moment. A time to collect debts, Ghost Rider announced, his voice shaking the charger's frame. And the black muscle car drove through the gate like it was tissue paper, leaving flaming tire tracks and absolute terror in its wake. The siege had begun, and hell had arrived in a '69 Dodge Charger, doing the devil's work with a street racer riding shotgun. The compound erupted into chaos the moment Ghost Rider's Charger crashed through the gate, flames rolling off the hood like liquid rage. Guards opened fire immediately, automatic weapons, shotguns, even a mounted .50 caliber machine gun that should have shredded any normal vehicle into scrap metal and regret. The bullets passed through the Charger like suggestions, not deflected, not absorbed. They simply stopped mattering, physics taking a coffee break while supernatural rules rewrote reality. The .50 caliber round sparked against the hood, fell harmlessly to the ground, and left the hell chariot completely untouched. "That's not possible," one guard screamed into his radio. "We're shooting it and nothing's happening." "Many things are possible," Ghost Rider replied, now his voice carrying across the compound with volume that shouldn't come from a human throat when you owe debts to hell. Dom, still in the passenger seat and protected by whatever supernatural grace extended to Ghost Rider's allies, pulled his own weapon, a modified Benelli M4 shotgun loaded with less lethal rounds. He wasn't here to kill guards who might just be desperate men taking bad jobs, but he was absolutely here to make them reconsider their employment choices. The Charger drifted, actually drifted, tires screaming against concrete while leaving trails of hellfire, and positioned itself between the guards and the warehouse where the victims were being held. "Dom, you handle the rescue," Ghost Rider said, his flaming skull turning to meet Dom's eyes without burning him. I'll handle the guilty." Dom nodded and rolled out of the Charger while it was still moving, a stunt he'd done 1,000 times, muscle memory making it smooth despite the supernatural circumstances. He hit the ground running, shotgun up, moving toward the warehouse with tactical precision Brian had taught him years ago. Behind him, Ghost Rider exited the Charger and began walking toward the clustered guards. Not running, not rushing, just walking with the inevitability of sunrise or entropy or death. "Shoot it!" a guard commanded, and 20 weapons opened fire simultaneously. Ghost Rider raised one hand. The bullets stopped midair, suspended in orange-blue flames that converted kinetic energy into hellfire. Then, with casual contempt, he flicked his wrist and sent the bullets back, not at lethal velocity, but fast enough to disarm and disable. Guards screamed as their own ammunition struck weapons from their hands, shattered kneecaps, rendered them combat ineffective without killing them. "Your sins are not great enough for death," Ghost Rider pronounced, "but they are sufficient for judgment." One guard, braver or stupider than the others, charged with a combat knife, screaming something about protecting his boss. Ghost Rider caught the knife mid-thrust, and the blade melted in his grip, metal liquefying and dripping to the ground as molten slag. "Carlos Menendez," Ghost Rider called out, his voice resonating through the compound like thunder. "I know you're here. I can smell the blood on your hands. 14 people waiting to be sold. 37 transported last month, 93 this year. Your debts are due." Inside the warehouse, Dom moved through shadows with practiced efficiency. The building's interior was exactly as Tej's schematics had indicated. Shipping containers converted into holding cells, a makeshift office where Menendez coordinated operations, and a loading dock where victims would be transferred to trucks for transport. Dom found the first victim within 30 seconds. A teenage girl, maybe 16, handcuffed to a pipe, terror and resignation competing in her eyes. When she saw Dom, she flinched, assuming he was another captor. "I'm not here to hurt you," Dom said in Spanish, his accent rough but understandable. "I'm here to get you out, all of you, but I need you to stay quiet and trust me. Can you do that?" The girl studied him. This massive man with a shotgun who somehow felt different from the monsters who'd imprisoned her. Finally, she nodded, but Dom pulled out bolt cutters and freed her restraints. "How many others?" 13, she whispered. "In the containers. They keep us separated so we can't coordinate escape." "Not anymore," Dom said. He handed her a phone, a burner, untraceable. "You see anyone who isn't me or my people, you call this number. It'll connect you to LAPD. Tell them there's a trafficking operation at this address. Tell them victims need immediate medical attention. Understand?" She took the phone with shaking hands. "Who are you?" "Someone who's done bad things trying to do something good." Dom replied honestly. "Now help me free the others." Outside, Ghost Rider had cornered 5 guards against a shipping container. They'd run out of ammunition and options, facing down a flaming skeleton who radiated judgment like heat. "Which one of you transported the children?" Ghost Rider demanded. Silence, fear. The guards looked at each other, none willing to speak, all terrified that confession meant immediate immolation. "Silence is complicity," Ghost Rider continued. "The spirit knows your sins, knows which of you drove the trucks, which of you locked the containers despite hearing screaming, which of you took money knowing what it paid for." One guard broke, younger than the others, barely out of his teens, crying, "I didn't know! I swear I didn't know! They told me it was smuggling merchandise, not people. When I found out, when I saw the kids, I tried to quit. Menendez said he'd kill my family if I talked." Ghost Rider's flames flickered, hesitation that the spirit of vengeance shouldn't show, but did. the human part of Robbie Reyes recognizing genuine remorse. Genuine victimhood masquerading as complicity. "Your debt is postponed," Ghost Rider said finally, "but not forgiven, atoned by testimony. Tell authorities everything, every name, every route, every location. If you do this, the spirit will not claim you." The young guard nodded frantically. Yes, I'll tell them everything. Please, just don't go," Ghost Rider commanded. "Before I change my mind." The guard ran. The other four watched in stunned silence. "You four have no such excuse," Ghost Rider continued, turning his burning gaze on the remaining guards. "Your debts come due now." He raised his hand, and chains materialized. Not normal chains, but constructs of hellfire that wrapped around the guilty guards with precision that suggested cosmic awareness of every sin they'd committed. "The penance stare," Ghost Rider announced. "Experience what you've inflicted." 4 sets of eyes met his burning gaze. 4 souls experienced simultaneous awareness of every moment of suffering they'd caused. The children crying in locked containers, the mothers screaming for babies taken away, the fathers beaten for trying to protect their families. All of it, all at once. Absolute empathy forcibly imposed. 3 guards collapsed unconscious, their minds unable to process the weight of guilt. The 4th, older, harder, someone who'd been doing this long enough to accumulate truly horrific debts, began screaming and didn't stop. Ghost Rider released the chains, let the guilty fall. "Justice," he said simply. Inside the warehouse, Dom had freed all 14 victims, 13 adults and 1 child. A boy maybe 8 years old who clung to his mother with grip that suggested he'd never let go again. They huddled together near the loading dock, waiting for whatever came next. "Dom," Letty's voice crackled through his earpiece. "We've got company, 2 trucks inbound, looks like reinforcements." "How many?" "At least 12 hostiles, military gear. They're not playing around." Dom cursed quietly, looked at the victims, looked at the single exit. Math wasn't favorable. "Ghost Rider," Dom transmitted. "I need backup. Got civilians to extract and armed reinforcements incoming." "Already moving," came the response. The warehouse's main door exploded inward, not from forced entry, but from the Hell Charger driving through it at 60 miles per hour. Ghost Rider at the wheel, the vehicle treating walls like optional suggestions. Yet the car slid to a stop between Dom's position and the incoming threats, creating a barrier of hellfire and American muscle. "Everyone in the truck," Dom commanded the victims, pointing to a cargo vehicle Tej had positioned nearby specifically for evacuation. "Move, now." The victims ran, survival instinct overriding confusion about flaming cars and impossible rescues. Dom provided covering fire as the 2 hostile trucks rolled into the compound, their occupants emerging with tactical precision that said these weren't street-level criminals. These were professionals. Mercenaries, Ghost Rider identified, his supernatural awareness cataloging their sins. Soldiers who sold their honor for money, who protected evil because it paid better than good. The mercenaries opened fire with coordinated discipline, suppressing fire, flanking maneuvers, proper squad tactics. They'd been trained by competent militaries and corrupted by better paychecks. Ghost Rider simply walked through their gunfire. Bullets sparked against his skeletal frame, and he didn't slow, didn't dodge, didn't acknowledge physics, screaming that he should be dead. He just walked forward while his chains manifested, hellfire-forged weapons that struck with impossible reach and precision. One mercenary took a chain to the weapon, disarming him instantly. Another tried to flank and found a chain wrapped around his ankle, dragging him off balance. A third attempted retreat and discovered that running from vengeance was always temporary. "You have protected slavers," Ghost Rider pronounced. "Enabled trafficking, facilitated suffering. Your military training makes your complicity worse. You knew better and chose profit." "We're just contractors," one mercenary shouted. "We don't ask questions about the client's business." "Willful ignorance is not innocence," Ghost Rider replied. "It is cowardice wearing plausible deniability." He raised both hands and the flames intensified, not to kill but to judge. The mercenaries found themselves surrounded by fire that didn't burn flesh, but absolutely burned conscience. "Drop your weapons," Dom commanded. His shotgun, trained on the few mercenaries Ghost Rider hadn't already disabled. "You're not dying today unless you choose to, but you are choosing right now whether you leave here as prisoners or corpses." To their credit, or perhaps their terror, the mercenaries dropped their weapons. Professional soldiers recognizing when the battlefield had shifted from tactical to theological. "Letty, what's your status?" Dom transmitted. "Victims secured. En route to Monica's safe house. Brian's team reports Victoria Chen in custody. She's singing like a canary about money laundering. Roman's team says Marcus Wheeler tried to run and wrapped his car around a telephone pole. No fatalities, lots of arrests. Dom, I think we actually pulled this off." "Not yet," Dom replied. "Where's Menendez?" "There," Ghost Rider pointed toward the office structure. Through the windows, a figure was visible. Middle-aged man in expensive clothes, currently attempting to shove papers into a briefcase, with the panicked energy of someone who knew his empire was collapsing. Carlos Menendez, the logistics coordinator, the man who'd transported hundreds of victims, who'd built an empire on suffering and called it business. "He's mine," Ghost Rider said, and his voice carried finality that suggested negotiation wasn't possible. "Wait," Dom said. "We need him alive. He's got information, names, routes, other operations. Kill him and that intelligence dies with him." "His debt exceeds the value of his information," Ghost Rider replied. "Maybe," Dom acknowledged. "But the people he can help us save, their value doesn't. Let him live long enough to give us what we need. Then," he met Ghost Rider's burning gaze, "then you collect." For 3 full seconds, Ghost Rider stared at Dom, the spirit of vengeance wrestling with mercy it didn't want to show but was being asked to consider. Finally, 5 minutes. He gets 5 minutes to confess everything. Then his debt comes due. They entered the office together, Dom with his shotgun, Ghost Rider radiating judgment that made the air shimmer with heat. Menendez was at the window, desperately trying to open it, to escape, to run from consequences that had finally caught up. "Carlos Menendez," Dom said, "you're done. Operation's over. Your people are arrested or scattered. The victims are free. The only question now is how the next 5 minutes go." Menendez turned, and his face cycled through denial, anger, fear, and resignation in rapid sequence. "You're Toretto, the street racer. Why do you care about my business? This isn't your world." "You made it my world when you used street racing to move your victims," Dom replied. "When you turned our culture into cover for trafficking. That made it personal. And you..." Menendez looked at Ghost Rider, his voice breaking. "What are you?" "Your judgment," Ghost Rider replied. "Your reckoning, the consequence of every choice you made that hurt innocence." "I was just facilitating logistics," Menendez protested. "I didn't hurt anyone directly. I just moved them from point A to point B. That's not the same as..." Complicity is guilt, Ghost Rider interrupted. You knew what happened at Point B, knew the suffering, knew the violations, and you took money anyway. That makes you guilty. You've got 5 minutes, Dom said. Tell us everything about Voss's operation, every name, every location, every person involved. Do that. And maybe you get to answer for this in a courtroom instead of hell. And if I refuse? Menendez tried to sound defiant, but mostly sounded terrified. Then the spirit collects immediately, Ghost Rider said, and your suffering lasts considerably longer than 5 minutes. Menendez broke. Not slowly, not with dignity. He collapsed into his chair and started talking, names spilling out in panicked confession, locations detailed with precision that came from years of operations. Financial accounts revealed because his survival instinct overrode loyalty. Dom recorded everything on a device Ramsey had configured specifically for this purpose. Every word, every admission, evidence that would dismantle trafficking networks across 3 states. 4 minutes, 30 seconds later, Menendez ran out of information. "Oh, that's everything," he gasped. "Every person, every route, everything I know. Now you let me go. We had a deal." "We had a conditional offer," Dom corrected. "You confess and you face human justice instead of supernatural vengeance, but you still face justice." "What are you?" Menendez started. Ghost Rider's hand clamped on his shoulder. "Look at me," Ghost Rider commanded. No, please, I told you everything. You can't. Look, me." Menendez's eyes met the burning gaze involuntarily, and the penitent stare began. But this time, Ghost Rider didn't deliver full judgment, didn't break the man's mind completely. Instead, he gave Menendez something worse: awareness. Absolute, unfiltered awareness of every victim's suffering, every child's terror, every parent's anguish, every moment of pain his logistics had enabled. And then Ghost Rider released him. Menendez collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, his mind intact but forever carrying the weight of what he'd done. Not broken, not destroyed, but fundamentally changed by experiencing consequences he'd spent years ignoring. "He lives," Ghost Rider said to Dom, "but he'll never forget what he's done. Every day, every moment, he'll carry their pain." "Is that mercy or punishment?" Dom asked. "Both," Ghost Rider replied. "As it should be." Police sirens were approaching now. Monica Fuentes had timed law enforcement arrival perfectly, giving Dom's crew time to extract before official procedures began, time to disappear before explanations became necessary. "We need to go," Dom said. They left Menendez crying in his office, surrounded by evidence of his crimes. He waiting for police who would find him gift-wrapped for prosecution. Outside, the compound was a scene of controlled chaos. Guards in custody, victims being treated by EMTs Monica had coordinated, and a black Charger that was already transforming back to normal as Robbie Reyes regained control. The flames died, the skull receded, the spirit of vengeance retreated, and a young mechanic sat in the driver's seat looking exhausted and haunted. "You did good," Dom said, climbing into the passenger seat. "I showed mercy," Robbie replied, his voice raw. "The spirit didn't want to, but I made it, forced it to let Menendez live." "That's progress," Dom observed. "Or weakness," Robbie countered. "The spirit keeps telling me that mercy enables evil, that every criminal I don't kill is another victim waiting to happen." "The spirit doesn't understand rehabilitation," Dom said. "Doesn't understand that fear can teach as effectively as death. Menendez will spend the rest of his life experiencing what he did to those people. That's not weakness. That's a punishment that actually serves purpose. Robbie started the charger. Normal ignition, normal engine, normal everything, except for the faint smell of sulfur that never quite left the vehicle. Your crew, they did their parts? All 3 lieutenants down. Victoria Chen singing about financial crimes. Marcus Wheeler in critical condition after trying to flee. His own fault. And we've got testimony that'll dismantle trafficking operations across the western states. Dom checked his phone. Messages from Letty confirming victim extraction. From Brian reporting law enforcement coordination success. From Tej detailing evidence collection. Tonight, we actually won. Tonight, Robbie agreed, but Voss is still out there, the head of the snake, and he's going to know we're coming. Good, Dom said. Let him know. Let him prepare. Won't matter. You're confident. I'm committed, Dom corrected. There's a difference. Confidence is thinking you can't lose. Commitment is knowing you might lose but fighting anyway, because the alternative is unacceptable. They drove through Los Angeles in silence for a while. 2 men bound by temporary alliance against evil that transcended legal definitions. A supernatural judge and a street racer. A curse and a code. Fire and family. Dom, Robbie said finally, when this is over, when Voss is handled, the spirit, it's going to want to judge your crew. I can feel it building. The debt assessment. It's patient, but it's not forgiving. Then we'll deal with it, Dom replied. Same way we deal with everything. Together, as family. Family doesn't protect you from vengeance, Robbie warned. Maybe not, Dom agreed. But it gives you a reason to fight it. And sometimes, that's enough. They arrived at the garage where the crew was assembling. Battered, exhausted, but victorious. 14 people freed, 3 trafficking lieutenants neutralized. Evidence gathered that would destroy networks reaching into 5 countries, and looming over it all, the knowledge that Alejandro Voss was still out there, still operating, still hurting people. But tonight, that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, they'd won. And hell had learned that family could teach vengeance about mercy. One impossible mission at a time. The safe house Monica Fuentes had arranged was a converted industrial loft in the Arts District, officially owned by a shell corporation, unofficially serving as a debriefing center for operations that couldn't be documented through official channels. The 14 rescued victims had been transferred to proper social services, given medical attention, and connected with organizations that specialized in trafficking survivor support. What remained was the crew, Monica, and the uncomfortable task of processing what they'd just accomplished. And what came next? 3 simultaneous raids, Monica said, reviewing reports on her tablet while pacing the loft's main space. 57 arrests, 14 victims recovered. Evidence sufficient to dismantle trafficking networks across 7 states. And somehow, she looked directly at Dom. No fatalities. How the hell did you pull that off with a literal demon on your team? He's not a demon, Dom corrected, glancing at Robbie, who sat apart from the group, hunched over a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He's cursed, different thing. Semantics that don't change the fact that you partnered with something that sets souls on fire, Monica shot back. Dom, I covered for you tonight, kept LAPD and FBI away from your operations, coordinated victim extraction, but I need to know, is this sustainable, or are we building towards something that ends with more bodies than we can explain? It's sustainable, Dom replied, as long as we keep the mission clear. We're dismantling Voss's network, freeing victims, stopping people who profit from suffering, Ghost Rider's methods are extreme, but they're targeted, precise. He's not burning random criminals. He's burning people who deserve it. And who decides who deserves it? Brian asked quietly from his position near the windows. He'd been silent since returning from the Victoria Chen operation, his FBI training making him uncomfortable with vigilante justice, even when it served righteous goals. Dom, I supported this operation because trafficking is inexcusable, but we just enabled something that operates outside every legal framework. What happens when it decides we deserve burning? It won't, Dom said with more confidence than he felt. You don't know that, Brian pressed. You're trusting a supernatural entity to maintain human moral standards. That's not a plan, that's faith. And faith doesn't hold up in court when things go wrong. Brian's got a point, Tej interjected, looking up from his laptop where he'd been analyzing the intelligence Menendez had provided. I've been cataloging the Ghost Rider's targets. Every single person it's burned has been guilty of genuinely horrific crimes. But the pattern shows escalation. It started with street-level transporters, people making a few $1,000s moving victims. Now it's hitting lieutenants making millions coordinating operations. What happens when it reaches Voss? When it's facing someone whose crimes are measured in hundreds of lives destroyed? It burns him? Letty said simply. She was cleaning her weapons with methodical precision, her hands steady despite the violence they'd participated in hours earlier. Voss deserves whatever the Ghost Rider does to him. Anyone who's been trafficking people for 8 years, who's built an empire on selling children, that's beyond redemption. Maybe, Ramsey said carefully, her usual confidence tempered by moral uncertainty. But what about the people around Voss? His accountants, his drivers, his guards who might just be desperate people taking bad jobs to feed families. Does the Ghost Rider distinguish between evil masterminds and complicit employees? It does, Robbie spoke up for the first time, his voice rough from exhaustion and internal conflict. The spirit can measure guilt, knows the difference between someone who chose evil and someone who was coerced. Tonight proved that. The young guard who didn't know what he was transporting, I let him go. The mercenaries who knew exactly what they were protecting, I judged them. You let one person go, Roman pointed out. One. Out of how many you've encountered over the past month? That's not exactly a great clemency rate, brother. The guilty outnumber the coerced, Robbie replied. That's not my fault. That's humanity's failing. Careful, Dom warned. Start thinking of humanity as failing. You stop being human yourself. That's when the spirit wins. Robbie met his eyes, and for a moment everyone in the room felt it. The tension between the man and the curse. The constant war for control of a shared existence. It's winning anyway, Robbie admitted quietly. Every time I transform, every time I judge, every time I burn someone who deserves it, the spirit gets stronger, and I get colder, more willing to see sin instead of people. Then don't transform, Mia suggested. She'd been quiet throughout the debriefing, but her voice carried the moral clarity that came from stepping back from operations to focus on family. If using the power corrupts you, stop using it. Find other ways to fight. I can't, Robbie said flatly. The curse doesn't give me that choice. Evil exists, the spirit responds. I can delay the transformation, can try to control it, but I can't stop it. The guilt calls and the vengeance answers. So you're trapped, Han observed from his position at the room's edge. Always watching, always calculating, bound to a power you don't want, Fighting battles you didn't choose. That's its own kind of hell. Yeah, Robbie agreed. It really is. Monica's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted from frustrated to alarmed. We've got a problem. DEA just intercepted chatter. Voss knows about tonight's operations. He's pulling back his LA operations, consolidating in Mexico where he's got protection. How soon? Dom demanded. 48 hours, maybe less. He's moving fast. Monica pulled up a map showing Voss's known territories. If he reaches his primary compound in Sinaloa, we can't touch him. He's got connections with cartel leadership, federal police, even some military units. Going after him there would require an army. Or a demon, Roman muttered. Ghost Rider's power doesn't care about political borders, Robbie confirmed. Guilt is guilt, regardless of geography. The spirit can judge Voss in Mexico, same as Los Angeles. But can we get to him in Mexico? Tej asked practically. Voss's Sinaloa compound is a fortress. Private security, military-grade weapons. And unlike his LA operations, this isn't just criminals. These are professionals who've been protecting him for years. They know the terrain. They've got home advantage. We've handled worse, Dom said. Name one time, Roman challenged. Brazil, the vault heist. We were outnumbered, outgunned, operating in foreign territory against corrupt police and local gangs. We adapted. We also almost died, Roman pointed out, multiple times, and that was stealing money, not invading a cartel compound to kill a trafficking kingpin with supernatural assistance. The difficulty level's slightly higher here, Dom. The principle's the same, Dom insisted. We identify the objective. We plan the approach. We execute with precision, and we trust each other to handle the impossible parts. The impossible part is getting close to Voss, Brian said, studying the compound layout Monica had pulled up. He's paranoid, doesn't trust anyone, keeps minimal staff in his inner circle. Getting someone inside to recon or sabotage, that's not happening. We don't need inside access, Letty said. We need Voss to come outside, draw him out, make him vulnerable. With what bait? Tej asked. What does Voss want badly enough to leave his fortress? Silence. Everyone processing the same question, searching for leverage that could move a man who'd spent 8 years insulating himself from consequences. Me, Robbie said suddenly. He wants me. Explain, Dom ordered. I've been burning through his network for a month, killing his people, disrupting his operations, costing him millions in lost revenue. Voss is a businessman. He doesn't tolerate threats to his profit margin. He'll want the Ghost Rider eliminated publicly as a message to anyone else who thinks they can interfere with his operations. So we leak your location, Ramsey understood immediately. Make Voss think he can take you out, draw him into a trap. Exactly, Robbie confirmed. I'm the bait, you're the trap. When Voss comes after me, probably with overwhelming force, you hit him from angles he's not watching. That's suicide, Monica stated. Robbie, Voss will bring everything. Every soldier, every weapon, every advantage. You'll be facing a small army. The spirit of vengeance has faced worse, Robbie replied. Armies, demons, gods, human criminals with automatic weapons. That's actually manageable. You're not invincible, Dom said carefully. I've seen you operate, seen the limits. You can be overwhelmed. You can be hurt. And if Voss knows about you, he's been researching, finding weaknesses, planning countermeasures. Then we make sure those countermeasures fail, Robbie said. Dom, this is the play, only play we've got. Voss won't come out for money, won't come out for threats, but he'll come out to eliminate a supernatural threat that's destroyed his infrastructure. His ego won't let him do anything else. Brian was already shaking his head. This violates every tactical principle. Using yourself as bait means you can't coordinate the response, can't adapt if things go wrong, can't retreat if overwhelmed. You're committing to a position with no flexibility. I'm committing to ending Voss, Robbie corrected. That's the mission. That's what matters. What matters, Dom said firmly, is that everyone survives. We don't trade lives for objectives. Now that's not how family operates. I'm not family, Robbie reminded him. I'm temporary alliance. When this is over, when Voss is handled, the spirit still plans to judge you all. Don't pretend we're something we're not. The room fell silent. The truth, uncomfortable, unavoidable, hanging in the air like smoke. Maybe not, Dom admitted, but right now, you're crew, and crew doesn't get sacrificed. We find another way. There is no other way, Robbie insisted. Then we make one, Letty said. We've built plans around impossible constraints before. This is just another impossible constraint. Actually, Tej said slowly, his fingers flying across his laptop, there might be something. I've been analyzing Voss's communication patterns. He's paranoid, yes, but he's got one vulnerability, his daughter. No, Dom said immediately. No, we don't involve kids, ever. That's a line we don't cross. I'm not suggesting we kidnap her, Tej clarified quickly. I'm saying Voss has a daughter at university in California, USC. She's legitimate, doesn't know about her father's business, or at least claims she doesn't. But she's leverage, not because we'd hurt her, but because Voss thinks like a criminal. He'll assume we would. That's still using a civilian as bait, Brian objected. Putting her in danger to draw out her father, I can't support that. We don't put her in danger, Ramsey said, seeing where Tej was going. We make Voss think she's in danger, fake evidence, doctored communications. Make him believe the ghostwriter is targeting his family as retribution for his crimes. The spirit wouldn't target innocents, Robbie said. May, that's not how vengeance works. Voss doesn't know that, Ramsey replied. He's terrified of you, terrified of losing control. If he thinks you're escalating to his family, he'll react. Probably rashly, definitely emotionally. And emotional reactions create tactical opportunities. Dom considered this, weighing moral lines against practical necessities, using an innocent person, even as unknowing bait, violated principles that defined how his crew operated, but letting Voss escape, letting him continue trafficking from a fortified position in Mexico that violated different principles. We don't put her in actual danger, Dom decided finally. We create the illusion of danger, make Voss think his daughter's at risk, but we station people to protect her, real protection in case Voss sends his own people or if anything goes wrong. The daughter never knows she was part of this. She stays safe, stays ignorant, and Voss gets drawn into our trap. I don't like it, Brian said, but I don't have a better option. I don't like it either, Dom agreed, but I like letting Voss escape less. Monica, can you get us surveillance on the daughter? Discreet, professional, no contact. DEA can't officially assist with operations involving civilians, Monica replied, but off the record, I know people who can watch a college student without making her aware she's being watched. What's the timeline? 48 hours until Voss leaves L.A., Tej said. We need to move within 24 to make him react before he's consolidated in Mexico. That's tight, Han observed. Very tight. Doesn't leave room for complications. Then we don't have complications, Dom said. Tej, Ramsey, manufacture the threat. Make it credible. Make it terrifying. Ghost Rider targeting Voss's daughter in retribution for his crimes. Brian, coordinate protection for the daughter. I want eyes on her 24/7. If anything goes sideways, if Voss sends people, or if the Ghost Rider actually manifests near her, it won't, Robbie interrupted. The spirit doesn't target innocents. It's constitutionally incapable of judging the guiltless. You're sure? Dom pressed. Absolutely, Robbie confirmed. The curse is specific. Only the guilty burn. Voss's daughter, if she's truly ignorant of his crimes, the spirit won't even register her existence. Okay, Dom accepted this. Letty, you're with me. We're coordinating the response for when Voss takes the bait. Han, Roman, you're on equipment. We're going to need serious firepower if this turns into an engagement. We're actually doing this, Roman said, not quite believing. We're faking a supernatural threat against a college student to draw out her trafficking kingpin father, so a literal Ghost Rider can burn his soul. This is the plan. This is what we're going with. You have a better one? Dom asked. No, Roman admitted, which is somehow the most disturbing part. This insane plan is actually the best option available. What does that say about our lives? That we're still fighting, Letty replied. Still trying to stop evil, still refusing to let monsters win just because conventional justice can't touch them. I'd say that's something to be proud of. Or therapy worthy, Roman muttered. Definitely one of those two. Monica was already making calls, coordinating off-book surveillance and protection details. Tej and Ramsey huddled over laptops, crafting fake evidence of Ghost Rider targeting Voss's family. Brian pulled up databases identifying the daughter's routine, her security, her vulnerabilities that needed protecting. And in the middle of the organized chaos, Robbie sat alone with his cold coffee and the knowledge that he was about to become bait in a trap designed to kill a man who absolutely deserved killing. The spirit stirred inside him, anticipating judgment, anticipating the moment when Alejandro Voss would finally face consequences for 8 years of monstrous crimes. Soon, the spirit promised. Vengeance comes soon. I know, Robbie whispered. That's what scares me. Not that I'll fail, that I'll succeed, that burning Voss won't be enough, that the hunger for judgment will just find new targets, like the Toretto crew. Yeah, Robbie admitted, like them. They are criminals. They have sinned. Their debts will come due. Maybe, Robbie said, but maybe debts can be paid differently than you think. Maybe redemption actually exists. Impossible. We'll see, Robbie replied, standing and moving toward where Dom was coordinating with his crew. Because if anyone can prove impossible things are possible, it's people who do the impossible for family. He joined the planning session, contributing tactical knowledge about the spirit's capabilities, helping identify how best to use supernatural vengeance as a weapon against human evil. And somewhere in Mexico, Alejandro Voss received a message that would change everything. A message claiming the Ghost Rider was coming for his daughter. A message that would draw him out of safety and into a trap built by criminals and curses working together. The endgame was beginning, and hell was about to learn that family fought harder than vengeance ever could. The University of Southern California campus was beautiful in the late afternoon, palm trees casting long shadows across Spanish-style architecture, students moving between classes with the casual confidence of people who believed the world was fundamentally safe. Isabella Voss sat at an outdoor table in the Levy Library courtyard, her laptop open to a molecular biology assignment, her noise-canceling headphones blocking out everything except the lo-fi study playlist she'd been using since freshman year. She had no idea that 6 different people were watching her. 2 were Brian's contacts, former FBI agents who'd retired into private security and owed him favors. They sat in a coffee shop across the courtyard, looking like graduate students but carrying enough concealed hardware to repel a small tactical team. 2 more were Monica's DEA assets, undercover agents posing as campus maintenance workers, their tool belts hiding communication equipment and sidearms. The 5th was Han, positioned in a car 3 blocks away, monitoring traffic patterns and ready to intercept any vehicles approaching with hostile intent. And the 6th was Letty, wearing USC apparel she'd bought that morning, sitting 2 tables away from Isabella, close enough to intervene if anything went wrong, but far enough to avoid drawing attention. "Target is stable," Brian transmitted from his position in a surveillance van parked near the engineering building. "No unusual activity, no indicator she's aware of the operation." "Good," Dom replied from the garage where he and Robbie were preparing for what came next. "Keep it that way. She's innocent. She stays innocent." Isabella closed her laptop, stretched, and checked her phone. Her expression shifted. Confusion, then concern. She opened a message, read it, and her face went pale. "She just received something," Letty reported quietly. "Text message." She looked scared. "Can you intercept the content?" Dom asked. "Working on it," Ramsey replied from her position in the surveillance van with Brian. Her fingers flew across her tablet, hacking into Isabella's phone through back doors that technically violated about 47 federal laws but were morally justified under the circumstances. "Got it? Oh no." "What?" Dom demanded. "Someone sent her a photo," Ramsey said, her voice tight. "It's her apartment, taken from inside. Someone broke into her place and photographed her bedroom. The message says, 'Your father's sins are now your burden. The rider comes for you tonight.'" "That's not our operation," Dom said immediately. "Tej, you were supposed to send the threat to Voss, not his daughter." "I did," Tej protested. "I sent doctored evidence to Voss's encrypted channels. Nothing went to Isabella directly. This is someone else." "Voss," Brian realized. "He's testing her, seeing if she's actually in danger or if this is a fake threat. He sent his own people to stage the photo." "Or," Robbie said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that suggested the spirit was listening, "someone else knows about our operation and is using it for their own purposes." Isabella stood abruptly, gathering her belongings with shaking hands. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Ramsey intercepted the audio instantly. Papa," Isabella said in Spanish, her voice breaking. "Papa, someone's threatening me. They broke into my apartment. They said something about your sins and a rider." The response wasn't audible. Voss was too paranoid to have trackable phones. But Isabella's reaction painted the picture. Her father was telling her something that made her cry. "You're coming to get me?" Isabella asked. "Papa, no, you can't. If you're in danger, if these people are after you." More unintelligible response. "Okay," Isabella whispered. "Okay, I'll wait. I love you too." She ended the call and sat back down, crying quietly while students walked past without noticing or caring. Letty felt her chest tighten. This girl was genuinely terrified, genuinely ignorant of her father's crimes, and they'd made her a pawn in a game she didn't know was being played. "This is wrong," Letty transmitted. Dom, this kid is actually scared. We did this. We made her believe she's in danger from a supernatural entity because of crimes she didn't commit. I know, Dom replied, his voice carrying weight that suggested he was wrestling with the same moral calculus. But if we back out now, Voss stays protected, keeps trafficking, keeps hurting people. Isabella's fear is temporary. His victim's suffering isn't. Doesn't make it right, Letty said. No, Dom agreed. It doesn't, but right now I'll settle for necessary. Voss is mobilizing. Monica's voice cut through the channel. DEA surveillance shows his convoy leaving the LA safe house. 8 vehicles, at least 30 personnel. Military-grade equipment. He's coming for his daughter personally. ETA? Dom asked. 90 minutes to campus, Monica calculated. Maybe less if he violates every traffic law. He will, Robbie said with certainty. He's terrified, desperate. That makes him reckless. Perfect conditions for a trap. Everyone move to secondary positions, Dom ordered. Brian, make sure Isabella gets extracted before Voss arrives. I don't want her anywhere near the engagement zone. On it, Brian confirmed. He emerged from the surveillance van in civilian clothes, approaching Isabella's table with a campus security badge. Forged but convincing. Excuse me, ma'am, Isabella Voss. Isabella looked up, wiping tears. Yes? I'm campus security. We've received a credible threat against you. I need you to come with me to a secure location while we assess the situation. My father's already coming, Isabella protested. He'll be here in... Ma'am, we can't wait 90 minutes, Brian said firmly but gently. The threat assessment indicates immediate danger. Please come with me. Your father will be notified of your location. Isabella hesitated, clearly torn between trusting authority and waiting for her father. Finally, survival instinct won. She gathered her belongings and followed Brian toward what she thought was campus security, but was actually a path toward Monica's DEA safe house. Target secured, Brian reported, moving her to location Sigma. She'll be under guard until this is resolved. Good, Dom said. Now we prepare for Voss. The trap was USC's parking structure. 7 levels of concrete and shadows, multiple entry points, limited sight lines. Perfect kill zone for an ambush. The crew had spent the afternoon rigging it with everything Tej's technical genius could devise. Cameras, motion sensors, remote-controlled barriers, and enough redundant systems that even if Voss's people disabled half of them, the other half would still function. They'll come in hard, Han predicted from his position overlooking the structure. Multiple vectors, overwhelming force, standard security protocol for extracting a VIP under threat. Then we match their force, Dom replied. He stood on the structure's 5th level, checking the magazine on a Benelli M4 that had been upgraded with modifications that probably violated several arms treaties. Around him, the crew was doing similar preparations, Roman nervously testing his MP5's laser sight, Tej running final diagnostics on their electronic countermeasures, Letty loading her Glock with the calm of someone who'd done this too many times to be nervous anymore. And in the center of the level, standing alone, Robbie Reyes prepared to become bait. You don't have to do this, Dom said, approaching him. We can find another way. Use different bait. You're not expendable. I'm cursed, Robbie corrected. Literally damned to fight evil until the spirit releases me or I die. This is what I was made for. You were made to be a mechanic, Dom said, to fix cars and take care of your brother. The curse came later. Don't let it define you. Robbie smiled, bitter and tired. Too late for that. I stopped being Robbie Reyes the moment I accepted the spirit's deal. Now I'm just the rider wearing Robbie's face." "That's not true," Dom insisted. "You showed mercy tonight, with Menendez, with that young guard. That was you, not the spirit. You're still human, still capable of choosing compassion over vengeance." "For how much longer?" Robbie asked. "Every time I transform, every time I judge, I feel myself getting colder, more willing to see guilt instead of context. Eventually, the human part dies entirely, and all that's left is the spirit. That's how the curse works. Slow erasure of whoever you were until only vengeance remains." "Then fight it," Dom said simply. "Every time it tells you to judge without mercy, you choose mercy anyway. Every time it wants to burn, you choose to spare. That's how you stay human, by refusing to surrender." "And what happens when refusing to burn? The guilty means innocent people suffer?" Robbie challenged. "When mercy enables evil, what then?" Dom didn't have an answer. The question was too fundamental, too impossible to resolve with platitudes or simple philosophies. "Then you make the hard choice," Dom said finally. "Same as anyone. And you live with the consequences. That's all any of us can do." Before Robbie could respond, Tej's voice crackled through everyone's earpieces. "Contact. 8 vehicles entering campus perimeter. Voss's convoy. ETA to parking structure. 4 minutes." "Everyone to positions," Dom ordered. "Remember, we're not here to kill everyone. We're here to get Voss. Everyone else is acceptable casualties only if absolutely necessary. Try for disabling shots. Try for intimidation. But if it's you or them, it's them," Letty finished. "We've had this conversation before, Dom. We know the rules." "Just making sure," Dom replied. He moved to his position behind a concrete pillar that provided cover and sight lines to 3 different approach vectors. Checked his weapon one final time. Slow breath. Mental preparation for violence that had become too familiar. This was the part he hated, not the fighting itself, but the moment before it started. The moment when everything could still go differently, when peace was still theoretically possible. But everyone knew it wouldn't be. The first vehicle entered the parking structure, an armored SUV, modified with additional plating and reinforced glass. Behind it, 7 more vehicles in tactical formation, professional work, military precision. They approached the 5th level cautiously. Security personnel scanning for threats, weapons visible but not yet aimed. Looking for Isabella, looking for the daughter they'd come to extract. Finding instead a young man in jeans and a t-shirt, standing alone in the middle of the level, his hands empty, his posture calm. "Robbie Reyes," a voice called from the lead vehicle, electronically amplified, commanding. "Also known as the Ghost Rider, you've made a mistake threatening Alejandro Voss's family." "I didn't threaten his family," Robbie called back. "I threatened him. Your boss is the one who brought his daughter into this by breeding her. That's on him, not me." The vehicles disgorged personnel, 30 armed men, moving with coordinated precision to surround Robbie's position. Professional soldiers, mercenaries, people who'd chosen this job, knowing exactly what it entailed. "Where's Isabella Voss?" the voice demanded. "Safe," Robbie replied. "Somewhere you can't reach her. Somewhere your boss's guilt can't touch her. She's innocent. The spirit doesn't punish innocence." "The spirit," one mercenary laughed, nervous sound that suggested he didn't entirely disbelieve what he'd heard about the Ghost Rider. "You think we're afraid of myths?" of street racing legends about flaming skulls. You're just a man, and men die." "True," Robbie agreed. He closed his eyes, breathed slowly. "But I'm not just a man anymore." He let go. The transformation was instantaneous. Flesh burned away. Bone emerged. Flames erupted from his skull with heat that made the concrete crack beneath his feet. And when the Ghost Rider's eyes opened, they burned with judgment that had been accumulating since the universe learned what guilt meant. "I am vengeance," Ghost Rider announced, his voice resonating through the parking structure with volume that shattered car windows. "I am the consequence of evil. I am the debt collector for souls who owe more than they can pay." Every mercenary raised their weapons simultaneously. "And you," Ghost Rider continued, his burning gaze sweeping across them, "are all guilty." They opened fire, bullets by the hundreds. Assault rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, everything modern military technology could provide. The sound was deafening. The violence was absolute, and Ghost Rider walked through it like rain. Bullets struck his skeletal frame and fell harmlessly. His chains manifested. Hellfire forged weapons that struck with reach, that violated physics. One chain disarmed 3 mercenaries simultaneously. Another wrapped around a vehicle and flipped it like a toy. "Now!" Dom commanded. The crew opened fire from concealed positions. Not to kill, precision shots aimed at tires, at weapon hands, at legs that would disable without executing. Professional shooting backed by years of experience, operating in situations where lethality was option but not necessity. Chaos erupted. Voss's mercenaries found themselves caught between supernatural vengeance in front and tactical precision behind. Their formation collapsed, their discipline crumbled, training that prepared them for conventional combat, offering zero guidance for fighting flaming skeletons and street racers simultaneously. "Fall back," their commander ordered. "Regroup at—" Ghost Rider's chain caught him mid-sentence, dragging him forward with strength that was entirely supernatural. "Where is Voss?" Ghost Rider demanded. "Where is the man who sent you?" He's not here," the commander gasped. "He stayed at the safe house, sent us to extract his daughter while he prepared for evacuation to Mexico." Ghost Rider's flames intensified with rage that transcended human anger. "Coward, he sends others to face judgment while he runs." "We've been played," Dom realized, cursing. "Voss isn't here. He used his own people as bait while he escapes." "Where's the safe house?" Letty demanded, emerging from cover with her weapon trained on the captured commander. "Where's Voss actually hiding?" I don't know the exact location," the commander insisted. "He doesn't trust us with that information. Only his inner circle knows where he actually stays." "Then you're useless," Ghost Rider said, his tone carrying finality. "Wait!" the commander screamed. "Wait!" "I can give you something. His vehicles. They're all equipped with tracking devices so he can monitor our positions. If you can access our network, you can trace where his signals are coming from." "Tej?" Dom called out. "Already on it," Tej replied, his laptop already connected to the mercenary convoy's communication system through back doors Ramsey had built. "Got the network access, tracking signals, tracking there. Signal cluster in Malibu, oceanside property, 3 miles from here." "That's it," Monica's voice came through the channel. "DEA has that property flagged. Voss owns it through a shell company. We've never had enough evidence for a warrant, but it's definitely his." "Then that's where we're going," Dom said. "Everyone extract. We're taking this fight to Voss directly." "What about them?" Roman asked. gesturing to the 30-some mercenaries, most disabled, all terrified. "They live," Ghost Rider pronounced. "Their guilt is insufficient for death, but sufficient for this." He raised both hands, and every mercenary simultaneously felt it, the penance stare, delivered not individually, but collectively. A moment of experiencing the fear they'd inflicted, the intimidation, the violence committed in service of evil, even if they'd personally avoided the worst atrocities. It wasn't enough to break them, just enough to mark them, to ensure they'd never forget this moment when they faced consequences for enablement. The crew moved out, leaving the mercenaries groaning on the concrete. They piled into vehicles: Dom's Charger, Letty's Subaru, Roman's Camaro, Brian's Skyline. A convoy of racing vehicles mobilizing for assault on a trafficking kingpin's safe house. And in the lead, the Hell Charger driven by Ghost Rider, flames rolling off the hood, judgment incarnate heading toward its final target. "Voss knows we're coming," Brian said over the comm. "He's had time to prepare defenses, call in backup, maybe even escape entirely." "He cannot run from vengeance," Ghost Rider replied. "The spirit knows his guilt, can feel it from miles away. Wherever he goes, judgment will follow." They drove through Los Angeles at speeds that would have horrified traffic enforcement, but barely registered to people who'd spent careers racing illegally. The convoy moved like a single organism, coordinated, precise, unstoppable. 3 miles, 2, 1. The Malibu property emerged. Modern architecture, ocean views, the kind of coastal mansion that cost more than most people earned in lifetimes. Surrounded by walls, guarded by security that was obvious even from a distance. And inside, Alejandro Voss waited. The man who'd built an empire on suffering, who'd trafficked hundreds, who'd destroyed families and called it business. His debt had come due, and hell was presenting the bill. Alejandro Voss stood on the balcony of his Malibu mansion, watching the Pacific Ocean roll endlessly against the shore, and allowed himself a moment of honest self-assessment. He was 53 years old. He'd built a trafficking empire that generated $40 million annually. He'd moved thousands of people across borders, sold them to buyers across 3 continents, and done it all while maintaining the veneer of a legitimate businessman. And now a flaming skeleton in a muscle car was coming to kill him. The absurdity would have been funny if it wasn't absolutely terrifying. "Status," Voss said into his phone, not taking his eyes off the ocean. "The team at USC is down," his head of security reported, voice tight with stress that years of military experience barely concealed. 30 operators neutralized, no fatalities. But extensive injuries. They were hit by coordinated assault, professional tactics combined with something we can't explain. "The Ghost Rider," Voss said flatly. "Sir, Don't insult my intelligence, Ricardo. I've seen the reports, reviewed the footage. There's something out there that doesn't follow normal rules. Something that's been systematically destroying my network for a month. And it's coming here. The question isn't whether it's real. The question is whether we can stop it." Silence on the other end. Then, "Honestly, sir, I don't know. Our weapons didn't affect it. Our tactics didn't slow it. And the people with it, Toretto's crew, they fought like professionals. This isn't street racers playing hero. This is coordinated military action backed by something supernatural." "Then we adapt," Voss replied. "Toretto's crew are human. They can be killed. The Ghost Rider." He paused, choosing words carefully. Everything can be killed if you apply enough force to the right vulnerabilities. Mobilize everyone, every asset we have in LA. I want this property defended like a military installation. Sir, with respect, maybe we should evacuate. Get you to Mexico where you have more resources. No, Voss interrupted. Running makes me look weak, makes people think I'm afraid. I've spent 8 years building a reputation as untouchable. I'm not destroying that by fleeing from street racers and urban legends. He ended the call and returned to studying the ocean. Somewhere out there, his daughter was safe, actually safe, protected by handlers he'd hired specifically for this scenario. Isabella would never know how close she'd come to danger, would never understand that her father's business required contingencies for supernatural vengeance. That was fine. She was innocent, deserved to stay innocent. Unlike him, Voss had no illusions about what he'd done, the people he'd trafficked, the families he'd destroyed, the children he'd sold. He knew exactly what his business entailed, and he'd made peace with it years ago through rationalizations that would have horrified anyone with functioning empathy. They were illegal immigrants, already criminals. He was providing a service, connecting supply with demand. If he didn't do it, someone else would. Might as well be him profiting. The rationalizations had worked for years, allowed him to sleep at night, allowed him to hug Isabella without feeling like a monster. But lately, especially since the Ghost Rider had started burning through his network, the rationalizations were getting harder to believe. Sir, Ricardo appeared on the balcony, tactical vest already equipped, rifle in hand. They're 3 minutes out. Convoy of 5 vehicles, moving fast. They'll be here before we can fully establish perimeter defense. Then we fight from the house, Voss decided. Turn my home into a fortress. Make them come to us where we have advantage. They have the Ghost Rider, Ricardo reminded him. Advantage might not matter. Everything has a weakness, Voss insisted. Fire can be extinguished. Supernatural entities can be banished. We just need to find the method. And if we can't, Voss met his head of security's eyes, then we die protecting what we built. But we don't surrender, not to criminals, not to demons, not to anyone. Ricardo nodded, the respect of one professional for another's commitment, even if the cause was morally bankrupt. I'll prepare the team. He left. Voss remained on the balcony watching headlights approach in the distance. 5 vehicles, maybe 20 people total, against his 40-person security force, his fortified position, his home territory. The numbers favored him, but numbers hadn't stopped the Ghost Rider at the USC parking structure, hadn't stopped it anywhere. For the first time in 8 years, Alejandro Voss felt something he'd inflicted on countless victims but never experienced personally. Genuine existential terror. The convoy stopped 200 yards from the mansion, just outside effective rifle range but close enough to observe. Dom killed his engine and stepped out of his Charger, was studying the property with tactical assessment that Brian had taught him to perform automatically. Fortified, Brian observed, using binoculars to survey the security positions. At least 40 personnel, hardened positions, overlapping fields of fire. They've had time to prepare. Doesn't matter, Ghost Rider said, his flaming skull visible even in the darkness. Walls don't stop vengeance. Guns don't stop judgment. Voss's guilt calls to the spirit, and the spirit answers. We still need a plan, Dom insisted. You're powerful, but you're not invincible. They've got 40 trained soldiers with military weapons. We need coordination. The plan is simple, Ghost Rider replied. I drive through the gate, I burn everyone guilty. I collect Voss's debt. That's not a plan, that's a suicide run, Letty protested. Even you can be overwhelmed. We've seen it. You've got limits. Fewer than you think, Ghost Rider said. But more than zero, Dom countered. And we're not losing you because you charged in without backup. We work together. That's how family operates. I'm not family, Ghost Rider reminded him. I'm vengeance. Temporary alliance, remember? Temporary or not, we don't let allies die stupid deaths, Roman said, surprising everyone by actually contributing tactically. Look, fire, Skull Demon. I know you're all about the dramatic entrances and the burning judgment and whatnot, but there's 40 dudes with automatic weapons in there. Even supernatural entities can have bad days. Let us help. Ghost Rider turned to face the crew. Dom, Letty, Brian, Roman, Tej, Han. Criminals bound by loyalty. Sinners who protected each other. People who'd done terrible things but were trying to be better. People the Spirit still planned to judge when this was over. Very well, Ghost Rider agreed. Coordinate, strategize, make your plan, but understand, when we reach Voss, he's mine. His debt is between him and hell. Agreed, Dom said. He pulled out a tablet showing the mansion's layout by information Ramsey had pulled from county records and architectural databases. 3 entry points, main gate, service entrance on the north side, and the beachside access. They'll expect us through the main gate. That's where they've concentrated defenses. So we don't use the main gate, Brian said. We split their attention, force them to defend multiple vectors. Classic divide and conquer. Tej, can you disable their security systems? Dom asked. Already working on it, Tej replied. His laptop connected to a portable antenna array. Their network security is actually pretty good. Military-grade encryption, but pretty good isn't Ramsey and Tej proof. Give me 3 minutes and I'll have full access. We don't have 3 minutes, Han observed. They're repositioning, getting ready for assault. We move now or we lose the initiative. Then we create chaos, Letty suggested. Force them to react instead of execute their plan. Ghost Rider goes through the main gate, exactly what they expect, but he's not trying to win, just draw attention. While they're focused on him, the rest of us hit the service entrance and beachside access. Pincer movement. Using me as bait, Ghost Rider said. Acceptable. The Spirit is well suited for drawing fire. You sure about that? Dom asked. 40 guns all aiming at you simultaneously. That's a lot of incoming damage, even for supernatural durability. The righteous need not fear the wicked's weapons, Ghost Rider replied. And the Spirit has been righteous since before your species learned to walk upright. That's either incredibly reassuring or deeply concerning, Roman muttered. Still haven't decided which. 3 teams, Dom decided. Ghost Rider through the main gate. Brian, Letty, and I take the service entrance. Roman, Tej, Han. Beachside access. We coordinate timing. Hit them from 3 sides simultaneously. Tej, you're on comms and electronic warfare. Disable their systems. Jam their communications. Make them fight blind. On it, Tej confirmed. What about me? A new voice asked. Everyone turned to see Mia emerging from Brian's skyline. They wearing tactical gear that suggested she'd been planning to participate all along. Absolutely not, Dom said immediately. Mia, you're staying in the vehicle. This is too dangerous. I'm a trained operator, same as the rest of you, Mia interrupted. I've run jobs, handled weapons, faced down worse than private security, and you need every advantage. So either I'm on a team or I'm following you in anyway and creating a coordination problem." Dom opened his mouth to argue, closed it, recognized that his sister had inherited the same stubborn refusal to be protected that made Letty so effective. "You're with Brian's team," Dom said finally. "Stay behind cover, provide support fire only. If things go bad, you extract immediately. Understood?" "Understood," Mia agreed, knowing that was the best she'd get. They synchronized watches, checked weapons, made final preparations for assault on a fortress defended by people who knew they were coming. 2 minutes, Dom said. "Everyone knows their role. Everyone knows the objective. We get in, we get Voss, we get out. No unnecessary casualties, no heroics. We work together, we survive together." "What about him?" Roman asked, gesturing at Ghost Rider. "Does he get the no unnecessary casualties speech?" "I only kill the irredeemable," Ghost Rider replied. "Voss's security force. Most are mercenaries, guilty of enabling evil but not actively participating in the worst crimes. They'll be judged, but not executed." "See," Dom said, "even vengeance has standards." "That's somehow not as comforting as you think it is," Roman replied. The 2 minutes passed in silence, broken only by equipment checks and nervous breathing. Then Dom raised his hand. "Go." Ghost Rider's charger roared to life, not normal ignition but the sound of hell's engine waking up. Flames erupted across the vehicle's surface. The tires left burning tracks as it accelerated toward the mansion's main gate at speeds that should have been impossible. The security force saw it coming, opened fire immediately. Hundreds of rounds converged on the approaching hell charger. Bullets sparked against impossible armor. Tracer rounds illuminated the night, and the charger didn't slow. It hit the reinforced gate at 70 miles per hour. The gate exploded inward, not broken, but disintegrated, metal liquefying under hellfire contact. The charger drove through the destruction like it wasn't there. And Ghost Rider emerged from the driver's seat, wreathed in flames that made the security team's weapons look like toys. "Alejandro Voss," Ghost Rider's voice boomed across the property. "Your debt has come due. 8 years of trafficking, hundreds of victims, countless suffering. The spirit of vengeance has measured your guilt, and you are found wanting." Every weapon on the property turned toward him. 40 professional soldiers focusing fire on a single target. The volume of incoming ordnance was staggering, enough to reduce a normal human to pink mist in seconds. Ghost Rider stood in the center of it and laughed. "Is this your best?" he taunted, chains manifesting in his hands. 8 years profiting from evil, and this is how you defend it? So pathetic. While the security force was focused on the supernatural threat breaching their main defenses, Dom's teams moved. Service entrance. Brian used shaped charges to blow the lock. Quiet work, professional execution. The team slipped inside, moving through servant corridors with weapons ready, clearing rooms with efficiency born from years of operating in hostile territory. Beachside access. Han picked the lock with tools that made the sophisticated security seem amateurish. Roman and Tej provided overwatch while they infiltrated, their weapons tracking potential threats that never materialized because everyone was focused on Ghost Rider's dramatic assault. "We're inside," Brian reported, moving toward Voss's position. "Second floor, northwest corner, according to the schematics." "Copy," Dom replied. "We're approaching from the east wing. Converge on the office. Tej, any luck with their comms?" "Jammed," Tej confirmed. "Their security can't coordinate. They're fighting blind against the Ghost Rider while we move freely. This is actually working. Outside, Ghost Rider was demonstrating exactly why supernatural vengeance had terrified humanity for millennia. His chains struck with precision that shouldn't be possible, disarming soldiers, destroying weapons, breaking formation without breaking bodies. He moved through gunfire like it was weather, and every time a guard got close enough to attempt hand-to-hand combat, they discovered that touching hellfire was educational, but painful. "Fall back," Ricardo commanded, his military training recognizing when a position was untenable. "Regroup at the secondary perimeter. Protect Mr. Voss's position." The security force retreated in good order, professional soldiers executing tactical withdrawal under fire. They fell back toward the mansion's interior, creating layers of defense that would force Ghost Rider to fight through each one, which was exactly what he intended to do. Dom reached the second floor and immediately encountered resistance. 3 guards positioned outside what the schematics indicated was Voss's office. Professional positioning, good sight lines, defensive advantage. "LAPD," Dom shouted, using the lie that had worked in past operations. "Drop your weapons, you're surrounded." The guards didn't buy it, opened fire. Dom and his team returned, suppressing fire while taking cover behind architectural features that were decorative but surprisingly bullet-resistant. "Brian, I'm pinned down," Dom transmitted. "I need flanking support." "On our way," Brian replied. His team emerged from a side corridor, catching the guards in crossfire. The guards, facing enemies from 2 directions, made the smart choice and surrendered. Dom zip-tied them and moved past, reaching the office door. It was reinforced, steel core, electronic lock, the kind of security that suggested whoever was inside wasn't planning on being easily accessed. "Tej, can you—" "Already unlocking," Tej interrupted. "Give me 30 seconds. Through the door, Dom could hear voices, Voss talking to someone, giving orders, sounding remarkably calm for someone whose fortress was actively being breached by supernatural vengeance. The lock clicked, the door opened, and Dom found himself facing Alejandro Voss for the first time. The man was smaller than Dom expected, maybe 5'8", slim build, wearing expensive casual clothes that suggested wealth without flaunting it. He stood behind a desk that probably cost more than a luxury car, and his expression was calm, almost serene, like he'd been expecting this moment. "Dominic Toretto," Voss said in lightly accented English. "The famous street racer turned hero. I've read about you. Rio, that vault heist. Very impressive work." "Alejandro Voss," Dom replied, his shotgun trained but not yet firing. "The famous trafficker. I've heard about you too. None of it impressive." "Depends on your metrics," Voss replied. "I've built an empire, generated millions, survived in an industry where most operators get killed or arrested within years. From a certain perspective, that's very impressive. From a moral perspective, it's monstrous," Letty said, her weapon adding to the coverage. "You've sold people, children, families. You've destroyed lives for profit." "I've provided a service," Voss corrected. "Connected people who wanted to come to America with opportunities to do so. Yes, some of those opportunities weren't ideal, but that's not my responsibility. I'm a facilitator, not a slaver." "You're a criminal who hides behind semantics," Brian said. "And your semantics are over. You're under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy, racketeering, and about 40 other charges that'll put you in prison for multiple lifetimes." "Am I?" Voss asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Because I don't see any badges. I see criminals, car thieves, fugitives, people who've broken as many laws as I have. What gives you the right to judge me?" "We're not judging you," Dom said. "We're just delivering you to someone who is." The wall exploded inward, not broken, not breached, exploded, concrete and rebar and expensive architecture disintegrating as Ghost Rider drove his Charger through the second-floor wall like it was tissue paper. The Hell Chariot's flaming hood emerged first, followed by the skeletal driver radiating judgment that made the air shimmer. "Alejandro Voss," Ghost Rider announced, emerging from the Charger with chains already manifested. "Your reckoning has arrived." Voss's calm finally cracked. His face went pale, his hands shook. Whatever sophisticated rationalizations he'd built to justify his crimes crumbled in the face of something that didn't care about justifications. "Please," Voss whispered, "please, I have money, resources. I can pay." "Debts of the soul cannot be paid with currency," Ghost Rider replied, moving closer. 8 years of trafficking, 473 victims transported, 112 children sold, countless families destroyed. The spirit has measured your guilt." "I didn't hurt them personally," Voss protested, backing against the wall. "I just moved them, connected them with opportunities. That's not the same as—" "Complicity is guilt," Ghost Rider interrupted. "You knew the suffering, knew the violations, and you profited anyway. That makes you accountable." He raised his hand toward Voss's face, the penance stare. "Experience what you've inflicted," Ghost Rider commanded. "Feel every moment of terror, every violation, every family separate, every child crying for parents who couldn't help, all of it. Now." Voss's eyes met the burning gaze, and his screaming started. It wasn't physical pain. The penance stare didn't damage the body. It damaged something deeper. Forced absolute empathy made Voss experience, in compressed moments, what his victims had suffered across years. The children locked in containers, crying in the darkness. The mothers separated from their babies, screaming for mercy that never came. The fathers beaten for trying to protect their families. The violations, the abuse, the systematic destruction of human dignity that trafficking represented, all of it, every moment, every victim, every scream. Voss experienced it all. When Ghost Rider finally released him, Alejandro Voss collapsed, broken in ways that physical torture could never achieve. He'd live. The spirit had shown mercy in that, but he'd never be the same, and never sleep without dreams of the people he'd hurt, never exist without carrying their suffering. "Justice," Ghost Rider said simply. He turned to Dom's crew. "It's finished. Voss's debt is paid. The trafficking network is dismantled. The mission is complete." "What about him?" Dom asked, gesturing to Voss's catatonic form. "We can't just leave him like this." "Police are already responding," Ghost Rider said. "Monica Fuentes ensured they received anonymous tips. They'll find him, find the evidence. He'll face human justice in addition to spiritual judgment." Sirens were approaching in the distance. The crew had maybe 3 minutes before law enforcement arrived, and explanations became necessary. "Time to go," Brian said. They moved toward the vehicles, leaving Voss's broken form for the authorities. As they exited, Ghost Rider stopped. Now, turning back to the mansion one final time, the flames on his skull flickered, dimmed slightly, and Robbie Reyes's human face emerged, tired and haunted. "It's done," Robbie said quietly. "Voss is finished. The trafficking network is destroyed. I kept my end of the bargain." "You did," Dom agreed. "Couldn't have done it without you." "And now," Robbie continued, his eyes flickering orange. The spirit remembers its other business, the crew's debts, your crimes, the judgment that was postponed. The crew tensed. Weapons didn't rise. Everyone knew guns were useless against Ghost Rider, but bodies prepared for violence. Yeah, Dom said, meeting those burning eyes without flinching. We knew this was coming, so let's have it. Judge us. Measure our guilt. See what you find. Ghost Rider's flames intensified, and the final reckoning began. The moment stretched like pulled steel, tension building toward inevitable breaking. Ghost Rider stood among the crew, flames intensifying, chains beginning to manifest. Dom's family positioned themselves without speaking, without planning, just falling into formation born from years of fighting together. They wouldn't win, everyone knew it, but they'd fight anyway, because that's what family did. Dominic Toretto, Ghost Rider began, his voice carrying the spirit's multi-layered echo. Grand theft auto, assault, evading arrest, destruction of property, robbery. Your crimes span years. Your debts are substantial. Yeah, Dom agreed, they are. Not denying it, but I'm also not apologizing for it. Every car I stole, every law I broke, I did it to protect people who mattered more than property. Now that's got to count for something. Intentions do not absolve actions, the spirit replied. The road to damnation is paved with justified theft. Maybe, Dom said, but the road to redemption is paved with choosing different, with using the skills you learned doing wrong to do right. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. None of us are. Change does not erase debt, Ghost Rider insisted, moving closer. The victims of your crimes still suffered. The property owners you robbed still lost. Your evolution doesn't undo their harm. You're right, Letty interjected, stepping forward despite Brian trying to pull her back. We hurt people, broke things, took what wasn't ours. But we also saved Isabella Voss tonight. Saved 14 people from being trafficked. Stopped a monster from hurting hundreds more. But doesn't that balance the scales even a little? The scales of justice don't balance, Ghost Rider replied. They measure, weigh, judge absolutely. Then judge this, Brian said, surprising everyone by moving to stand beside Dom. I was FBI. I hunted criminals for a living. Then I met this family and realized that the law isn't always right. That sometimes the people breaking rules are better than the people enforcing them. I gave up my badge, my career, my future, to protect people the system had failed. If that's a sin worth burning for, then burn me. Ghost Rider's flames flickered, hesitation that the spirit shouldn't show, but was showing anyway. The human part of Robbie Reyes fighting against absolute judgment. Brian O'Connor, the spirit pronounced. You betrayed your oath, aided fugitives. You became what you swore to fight. I became what I should have been all along, Brian corrected. Someone who protects people instead of prosecuting them. Someone who values loyalty over law. If that's wrong by your standards, then your standards are broken. The tension ratcheted higher. Ghost Rider's chains fully materialized now, hellfire weapons hovering in the air, ready to strike. Roman Pierce, Ghost Rider continued, his gaze shifting. Thief, criminal, accomplice to countless crimes. Yeah, and, Roman replied with bravado that barely masked terror. I stole cars, big deal. Nobody died. Nobody got permanently hurt. I took rich people's toys and redistributed them. Call me Robin Hood with a turbocharger. Robin Hood stole from the rich to give to the poor, Ghost Rider observed. You stole from the rich to give to yourself. At first, yeah, Roman admitted. But then I met Dom, met this family, and suddenly the stealing had purpose. Suddenly I was using my skills to protect people, to stop worse criminals, to save lives. That's evolution, Fire Skull. That's redemption. And if you can't see that, then you're blind, despite the glowing eyes. Ghost Rider turned to Tej and Ramsey, technological criminals, hackers, cyber thieves who violated privacy and security for profit. For survival, Tej corrected. I grew up in circumstances where legal work didn't pay enough to keep me alive. I learned to hack because the alternative was starvation. Then I met people who showed me those skills could help instead of just steal. That's not crime, that's adaptation. Adaptation that harmed innocence, Ghost Rider pressed. Every system you breached, every firewall you compromised, someone suffered from your actions. Maybe, Ramsey acknowledged, but tonight I used those same skills to save 14 people from trafficking, to dismantle a network that would have hurt hundreds more. If my past crimes buy future rescues, I'll accept that trade. Ghost Rider's flames were fluctuating now, intensifying and dimming in rhythm with internal conflict. The spirit demanding judgment, Robbie demanding mercy. Two forces wrestling for control of shared existence. Hansul O, the spirit continued, almost desperately, as if cataloging crimes would make judgment easier. Thief, smuggler, profiteer from illegal racing. Han lit a cigarette with deliberate calm. All true, and I'd do it again. Because the alternative is being someone who follows rules designed by people who never had to fight for survival. I'm a criminal, but I'm a criminal with code, with loyalty, with family. That counts. It does not count, Ghost Rider insisted, but his voice was wavering now, the spirit's certainty cracking. Crime is crime, sin is sin, the guilty must be... Stop! Robbie's human voice cut through the spirit's declaration. The flames dimmed dramatically, and for a moment, the young mechanic was visible again, struggling for control. Just stop, please. Robbie, the spirit's voice resonated inside his skull, audible to everyone through supernatural acoustics. They are guilty. The debt is real. We must collect. Why? Robbie demanded. Why must we? Because it's justice. Or because it's easier than admitting that redemption exists. Redemption is what I saw tonight, Robbie interrupted. These people, criminals, yes, they fought to save innocence. They risked everything to stop trafficking. They partnered with a literal demon to protect people they'd never met. That's not damnation, that's salvation. Their past crimes are in the past, Robbie said firmly. Yes, they hurt people, broke laws, caused damage, but they've also saved lives, protected families, used their criminal skills for righteous purposes. If the scales don't balance, maybe the scales are measuring the wrong things. The spirit was silent, a pause that felt like cosmic recalculation. You would spare them, the spirit said finally. Allow criminals to escape judgment because they performed good deeds? I would recognize that people are complex, Robbie replied. That they can be criminals and heroes, sinners and saviors. That reducing them to their worst moments ignores their best ones, and most importantly, he looked directly at Dom. I would honor the partnership that made tonight possible. They trusted me, fought beside me, treated vengeance as ally instead of a weapon. That deserves recognition. The flames around Ghost Rider's skull began to recede, slowly, reluctantly, but undeniably. Very well, the spirit said, and its voice carried something that might have been respect. The Toretto crew's debts are postponed, not forgiven, not erased, but postponed, conditional on continued service to the innocent. What does that mean? Dom asked carefully. So it means, Robbie said, fully human now, the flames completely gone, that you're not burning today. Maybe not ever if you keep doing what you did tonight. The spirit still believes you owe debts, but it's willing to accept that you're paying them through action instead of suffering. That's not mercy, the spirit's voice echoed faintly. That's pragmatism. Criminals who protect innocence are more valuable alive than judged. Call it whatever you want, Robbie said. The result's the same. They live. They continue their work. And the spirit gets allies who can reach places vengeance alone can't. Dom stepped forward, extending his hand. Then we're still partners. Robbie looked at the offered hand, at the crew standing behind Dom, at people who'd trusted a cursed mechanic with their lives and received supernatural judgment in return. He took Dom's hand. Yeah, we're partners. Temporary alliance became something else. Not sure what, but something. Family, Letty said simply. Doesn't matter if it's blood or choice or a curse. If you fight beside us, protect innocence with us, trust us, you're family. The spirit won't like that designation, Robbie warned. The spirit, the voice echoed one final time, will adapt. Sirens were very close now. Law enforcement responding to reports of explosions, gunfire, and a flaming car driving through walls. Time to disappear. We need to go, Brian said, before we have to explain tonight to people who wouldn't believe the truth anyway. The crew moved to their vehicles. Ghost Rider's Charger had transformed back to normal, just a black '69 Dodge, battered but functional, no flames or supernatural properties visible. Robbie climbed in, and for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than the spirit's constant pressure. He felt hope. They drove away from Voss's mansion in a convoy that looked like street racers leaving a meet. Casual, unorganized, easy to overlook. But everyone in those vehicles knew they'd just accomplished something impossible. They'd stopped a trafficking network. They'd partnered with supernatural vengeance. They'd proven that criminals could be heroes. And they'd taught hell that redemption wasn't weakness, it was strategy. 3 weeks later, the garage in Echo Park looked the same as always. Motor oil and coffee and history. But the people in it had changed in ways that couldn't be measured by external observation. Dom stood at his workbench, reassembling an engine block with practiced precision. Beside him, Robbie Reyes worked on a transmission, his hands steady, his expression peaceful in a way it hadn't been since the curse. The spirit's been quiet, Robbie said without looking up from his work. 3 weeks. No major manifestations, no urgent debts demanding collection. It's strange, peaceful. Maybe it's learning, Dom suggested. Learning that not everything is debt and judgment, that some things are worth preserving instead of burning. Maybe, Robbie agreed. Or maybe it's just satisfied. We took down Voss, dismantled a major trafficking network, saved a lot of people. That's enough vengeance for a while. Until it's not, Dom observed. Until it's not, Robbie confirmed. The curse doesn't end just because I want it to. Eventually, there'll be another Voss, another evil that needs burning, and the spirit will demand we hunt it. Then we'll hunt it together, Dom said. The crew, you, the spirit. Whatever comes next, we face it as family. Robbie smiled, genuine warmth that transformed his face from haunted to hopeful. Family, still getting used to that concept. The spirit thinks it's illogical. I think it's the only thing keeping me human. The garage door opened. Letty entered with takeout bags, followed by Brian carrying a case of beer. Then Roman complaining about traffic. then the rest of the crew filtering in for their weekly gathering. "Robbie," Roman called out, "Fire Skull, glad you're here. I've got questions about the whole burning souls thing. Specifically, can you do it selectively? Like, could you just burn someone's bad memories but leave the good ones? Because I've got some experiences from high school I'd really like to forget." "That's not how it works," Robbie replied, laughing despite himself. "But theoretically, still not how it works." They ate together, talked about cars and plans and the jobs they were considering for next month. Normal conversation, normal family dynamics. Except one member of the family could transform into a flaming skeleton and judge souls. Details. As the evening progressed, Dom pulled Robbie aside onto the garage's exterior landing where they could see Los Angeles sprawling below. City lights and traffic and millions of people living lives that would never intersect with supernatural vengeance or impossible car chases. "You thinking about staying?" Dom asked. "In LA with the crew? Or is this temporary until the spirit calls you somewhere else?" Robbie considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know. The curse doesn't give me much choice about where I go. Evil exists, the spirit responds, I follow. But..." He looked back at the garage, at the crew laughing together, at family built from choice instead of blood. "But I'd like to stay, if the spirit allows it, if you'll have me." "Your crew," Dom said simply. "That means you've got a place here as long as you want it, curse and all." "The spirit still plans to judge you eventually," Robbie warned. "All of you, when your debts outweigh your redemption, when the balance tips. It won't hesitate just because we've fought together." "Then we better keep the balance tipped toward redemption," Dom replied. "Keep protecting people, keep stopping evil, or keep proving we're worth more than our worst moments." "You really believe that's possible?" Robbie asked. "That criminals can become heroes? That redemption actually exists?" Dom met his eyes. "I believe that I was a thief who became a protector, that Brian was a cop who became family, that Letty died and came back stronger, that all of us have been broken and rebuilt into something better. So, yeah, I believe redemption exists because I've lived it." Robbie nodded slowly, accepting this philosophy that the spirit would probably never understand but was learning to tolerate. "Okay," Robbie said, "then I'm staying, for now. Until the spirit calls me elsewhere or until you decide a cursed mechanic is more trouble than he's worth." "Won't happen," Dom assured him. "We've dealt with worse trouble. At least your trouble burns things that deserve burning." They returned to the garage, to family, to the impossible normal that people built when their lives involved street racing and supernatural curses. And somewhere in the darkness of Robbie's soul, the spirit of vengeance made peace with an arrangement it didn't fully approve of but couldn't deny was effective. Criminals who protected innocence, sinners who fought for redemption, family that accepted cursed mechanics who sometimes became flaming skeletons. It wasn't traditional justice, but it was working, and the spirit, for the first time in its eternal existence, wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was more than one way to balance the scales. 6 months after the Voss operation, reports began circulating through law enforcement channels about a phenomenon that couldn't be explained. Trafficking networks were collapsing across the western United States, not through arrests or prosecutions, but through fear. Criminals involved in human trafficking were disappearing, not killed, but changed, broken, found by police in catatonic states, babbling about flames and skulls and judgment, and always, at the scene, burn marks that couldn't be explained by conventional accelerants. FBI profilers attempted to create a psychological profile of the vigilante. Failed. DEA investigators tried to track the pattern, found nothing except increased reports of a black muscle car seen near the incidents. And criminals across 3 states began whispering about the Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance that hunted those who hurt innocents, that couldn't be bought or reasoned with or stopped. Most dismissed it as urban legend. The smart ones knew better. In Los Angeles, in a garage that smelled like motor oil and family, Dominic Toretto worked on his Charger while a young mechanic named Robbie Reyes tuned an engine in companionable silence. The spirit of vengeance slept, but it was always watching, always measuring, always ready to collect debts from those who thought they could profit from evil. And now it had allies, criminals who'd become heroes, sinners who'd found redemption. A family that proved the impossible was just difficulty waiting for the right people. The quarter mile had met eternity, and both had learned that family was faster than vengeance, stronger than curses, and more powerful than any force, human or supernatural, that tried to tear it apart. Because at the end of the day, when the fires burned and the judgment came, what mattered wasn't how fast you could drive or how hard you could burn. What mattered was who you fought for, who you protected, who you called family. Everything else was just details.